You can be funny. You can be a little crass, a little mopey, a little uplifting. Can deal with the higher levels of the sports world, the GMs and the presidents and everything else, and also talk about sleeping in the same bed as your sister. So nobody combines those things, those traits, in a nicer, kinder, more professional package than Stoney. And I'm going to stop now because I got to get back to making fun of you, okay?
Please do.
So, Woj, I know that obviously you have tremendous history with one Mike Stone.
Correct.
What is impossible question to answer, but just if you close your eyes for just a moment, what's the one thing that comes to mind? when you think of Mike Stone.
Well, that does fit for that tournament we did that one time.
Yes.
Breast euphemisms.
Oh, yeah, that was a biggie for sure.
It's a different world back then.
That's a really hard question.
Yes.
Because, I mean, seriously, just go down the list of drops. There's a career and a life history in drops with Stoney, and I'm honored to say I was there for most of them or many of them. I do love Stoney's, and not just based on yesterday or whatever day it was. I do like Stoney's periodic bursts of angry or annoyed passion, and it's not that he's.
So you listened yesterday?
Yes. No, but people say, and I go back to what I said before, that Stoney can be all things that he needs to be, and at the appropriate times. And he got yelled at me. The famous quote where Stoney yelled at me, "I'm asking the fans out there, Wojo," when I was interrupting him, which I don't think I did that much, but occasionally I did. And I just like the bursts of passion and humor and ability to, have fun, poke fun, and remain fun. And again, as you guys said, not an eulogy, not a farewell, not anything, but an appropriate time to say these things. And now let's get back to making fun of Stoney. Can we please?
Sure. Do you remember? I don't know if you were listening earlier when we played one of our favorites with a family member.
I certainly do. Yeah, and you know what? Since Jansen asked it, this sounds like I'm overarching this, but I'm not. When you asked for a moment, to me, that clip there, which has endured these many years. I think his sister is now a great-grandmother. I don't know. It's been a while.
She listens. You're in trouble now.
I'm kidding. I'm just saying how long ago it was.
I know.
But to me, that encapsulates what Stoney's about. He said something relatively innocently, talking about on a road trip or whatever, or there was only one bed and you had to share it. Very, very innocent. And we took him down a path that he, as Gov said earlier, he didn't really want to go down. I mean, because we turned it into he slept with his sister, which he technically did, although he didn't. And that's Stoney in a nutshell. He can roll with any punches. He can turn, doesn't mind playing along with anything. And it also shows that he's very close to his family.
So I'd like to ask you this question because I know that you get up early to do this segment with us, so I'm assuming that you didn't hear the discussion we were having earlier. And I just want to ask you, after we play this new drop for Stoney, what is the topic that we were talking about?
Oh, wow. A slot in a hole. I don't know. Is it like a post office phrase, putting it in the slot? Or I honestly, I really don't know a difference between a slot and a hole. Oh, it's like a slot machine, Vegas.
Well, I mean, no, not really, but... No. We could let you, keep guessing, but we'll let you know that we were talking about, some people their thoughts on either peeing in a shower or not peeing in a shower.
Oh.
And I was talking
I was
about
talking about the drain.
how, like, when I like to, sometimes I'll play a game, I try to, go.
Oh, dear God.
In the hole, and then they're making fun and saying basically, well, all drains have holes. I said, no, some have slots.
Oh, so Sonia, I think they're coming to get you right now. All right, I don't think you're even making it till 10 now. Well, I guess that ties in with.
So the question then is, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh, come on.
Well, Wojo has very peculiar bathroom habits.
Yeah.
He will only take a poop at his own house or at a hotel.
God. Oh my Lord, here we go again. First of all, I honestly, I don't even know if it's a slot or a hole in the bottom of my shower. I can go up and look, but I don't know which one it is. And Sony, you've gone down this path so many times. How many topics have you done on piddling outside with your dog, outside showers up north?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, this. Maybe you do have some issues you need to work out a little bit.
Well, so I guess the next question is, because then Stoney shared this, or maybe it was Gov that shared this, sharing a hotel room. He just got up and started walking
he
around
walks
the room
around
naked.
naked if you share a hotel room with him.
Yeah, have you had that experience?
No.
I haven't had that the full Stoney, so to speak. Thank God. But I have heard about it. Maybe an unfortunate promotions person of some sort at all. And again, fits in with the theme, right? Let it all out. I'll say whatever. And let it all out, no matter how much or how little there is to say, or let out. That's what I'm saying.
That's what he does when somebody calls in and calls him ugly on the air.
Oh, that's right. Oh, well, what did Sony go off saying? He was, again.
You can't say it anymore.
No.
Oh, shoot.
Yes,
no wonder
or
I'm not
this
hearing
would be the
drop.
last show.
Yeah.
It turned to
the fun thing. And Gus,
Stoney, before you're
this,
gone, do you want that guy to call in again? Just for
Oh, yeah.
S's
Sure.
and Jesus.
I want them all. I want Linda from Grand Blanc. I want Wendy from Roseville. I want them all.
The funny thing is, and working for you as a partner on the air for 13 years at the old WDFN, and I didn't do this on purpose. I don't think anybody did, but because, not to get mushy, but because you're so fun to play with and to chat with and to take down different paths, even ones I don't want to go down, but you go down, but that's fine. It really is an indication of how, easy it is to work with you. You can go with anything, even when you make some of us uncomfortable with some of the things you bring up, like your habit on vacation to go to Colombia and purchase some sort of substances. Okay, that one I probably
You're
made up.
exaggerating just a smidge.
I am exaggerating just a bit, but the point is that to make fun radio, and John and Gov, this, is that you look for buttons to push, and not fake buttons, but things that rile people up, or that rile your partner up. And it's sometimes hard to find Stoney's button because he doesn't take anything too seriously.
Oh, I can hit those buttons.
Yeah, other than who's calling timeouts at what time in the end of the first half of an NFL game.
Yeah.
Beyond that topic. But when you find the buttons, the fun button, the angry button, the passionate button, he's got all the buttons. He's the Godfather, for God's sake. It's great. It's, great radio and great conversation and great times with the Godfather.
All right. Well, in all seriousnity, one of my other favorite
No,
words.
let's go back to Stoney. No, okay, go ahead.
All right. Just when should we get our Parker Meadows Hall of Fame shirts ready?
Oh, did you see him leg out that triple yesterday?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my. Now, are you ready to add him, the foursome to go with the current big three that includes Kerry Bonds? You ready to add Parker
Kerry
Meadows?
Bonds. That's really great, that name.
Rieger swears he didn't actually make that up. He heard it somewhere,
Okay.
but we've adopted it. Yeah,
Okay.
Kerry Carpenter, Kerry Bonds. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's not yet in the core, but little glimpse, and you always see little glimpses, and they don't always turn into bigger glimpses. But that was impressive because he's an athlete. He can run. He's going to be a great center fielder, I believe, going forward. Hopefully he will hit. And hopefully the Tigers are on their way to finding pieces that we haven't seen in a while, all these young pieces. And it's kind of encouraging. It kind of will make the last, 6 weeks more fun, in addition to the Miggy Farewell Tour churning to its conclusion.
Absolutely. Woj, thank you for joining us as always, and thank you for being such a great radio partner, but more importantly, such a great friend, not just to me, but to the whole community and my family who loves you.
Oh, of course. Say hi to Jasmine Miranda and the lovely and talented one. Stoney, you're the best, and I know you don't say it, and I know you don't like to hear it, but I say it sincerely, and many people do too. And you'll remain a great radio host and a great friend.
And I can't wait to do our first 20-minute show together.
Yeah, it should be outstanding.
Absolutely.
I'll just get you to yell at me. That's it.
All right. Absolutely. Thanks, Woj.
Woohoo!
All right. For years, you've heard me talk about Capital Mortgage Funding. That's right. Pretty much since I started, Harry Glanz has been loyal. And just because he's loyal to me, he's loyal to everybody. That's what they do at Capital Mortgage Funding. They are the best. They've been around for a long, long time. Call them today, 1-800-LOW-RATE. The home purchase market, it's changed over the years, but the thing that's consistent is Capital Mortgage Funding. They do everything for you, everything. They make the whole process smooth, easy, and hassle-free. When you see these guys on TV, you know they're Capital Mortgage Funding. You see some other guys on TV, you have no idea where they are. He worked there 10 years ago. What's he doing? Anyway. Call them today. They're the best. 1-800-LOW-RATE. Capital Mortgage Funding. 1-800-LOW-RATE. The best mortgage banker.
I don't think one Lion gets enough love. I think it's clear that the organization loves this guy. I think there's plenty to support that the organization loves this guy. And I think we gloss over his contributions. And I am ready to stop that and start an appreciation thread on this Carson Anderson message board for Khalif Raymond. This guy, he checks a lot of the boxes in a player that Detroit would love. Small school guy, had to kind of scrap and claw even to get looked at coming out of Holy Cross. I think he had to go like Boston College's pro day to get noticed, bounced around, played for 3 other teams, settles in Detroit, and he's caught, before he got to Detroit in 4 seasons, the guy caught 19 passes in 4 seasons. His first year in Detroit, he catches 48 passes. Second year in Detroit, he catches 47 passes. Last year,
Two four eight 539-9797. I just want to reiterate something because I'm not retiring. I'm just off the morning show after the Super Bowl, and then I will be a guy that'll be around. I'll be
You're
a
going
utility.
to be a well-rested guy, too.
Yes, absolutely.
You'll still be around.
Yes,
Still lingering.
I'll be lingering.
He'll always be lingering,
I'll
John.
have a presence at the draft, which is here in April. I'll be Lions post-game, and I'll be in for a lot of shows.
Yeah.
A lot of shows, because as somebody mentioned in the ticket text, a lot of vacations need to be filled. You know,
Yes.
we got that responsibility coming up. All right. Speaking of Super Bowls, a famous Super Bowl, maybe one of the most famous plays in Super Bowl history, took place when the Seattle Seahawks took on the New England Patriots. And you remember the Patriots came back late, took the lead. Everybody thought they were going to win. And then Russell Wilson hit Curse, I believe it was, and he made a great catch. And suddenly, I remember seeing the shot of Brady on the sidelines. Oh, my God, we're going to lose. And they gave the ball to Marshawn Lynch, got it to the 1 yard line. And then you know what happened. Russell Wilson threw the pick, Malcolm Butler. And, of course, Matt Patricia said that it was the greatest defensive call in NFL history. But for the other side of the story, you know, Pete Carroll took a lot of heat, which as the head coach he should have. And he took some heat from some of his players, including Richard Sherman, his great cornerback, a great player, big personality. He has a podcast, does Richard Sherman. So he was in Seattle visiting his former team and his former coach, Pete Carroll, and they discussed said play. It was. It made Malcolm Butler, and then of course he didn't play in the Super Bowl a couple of years later, which is one of the great NFL mysteries of all time.
Yeah.
If they wrote a book about like mysteries in sports, that would be right at the top, right?
It would need to be near the top, yeah, because to this day we have no idea why he was only on special teams and not on defense.
Yeah, I mean,
and nobody will talk about it. Not even himself.
No, it's like there's something happened. It's like this unwritten rule.
Don't talk about Malcolm Butler.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, it's time for news, and here is Heather Park.
So I was not here yesterday, so I never got to share the great news that those two infant twins
were
found
recovered.
Safe.
Yes.
Thank God, because you just never know what was going to happen, especially hearing that they were 14 days old. Obviously, we all heard about this Amber Alert. Well, the boys were kind of just dropped off at the Detroit police station after about 12 hours of being missing. They were taken to the hospital to be evaluated. Everything appears that they're in great condition, which is even better news. Now, police declined to actually identify who brought the two kids into the police station, but they have said that 4 arrests have been made. But it's all still very mysterious because they're not really saying who was arrested and how they were connected. And it sounds like there's still a lot of questions that remain unsolved. The mother claims that they were taken by a friendly acquaintance who she actually met on Facebook. And these friendly acquaintances were going to be dropping off some diapers and other supplies that she needed.
It's
all
just
strange.
glad that they're safe.
Yes, exactly. That's the most important part. 2 Michigan craft breweries have been named amongst the best brew pubs in the U.S., which is pretty cool. According to this list from USA Today, City Built Brewing in Grand Rapids was listed at number 9. This is out of the 10 best brew pubs in the U.S. And then Salt Springs Brewery took the 5th spot, which is pretty cool. I've never been to either. I'm not a big beer drinker, which is why, but still it's nice to get some hometown recognition.
Yep.
Antonio Brown is in some legal trouble once again, as the judge has now ordered him to be arrested for unpaid child support. So the ruling was made back on August 9th when he missed a $15,000 child support payment to his ex. Now, he can easily avoid jail time if he just pays the money. It's all he's got to do. He also now has to pay another $5,000 in attorney fees. And this is not the first time that he has been in trouble for this. Back in April, he missed a $30,000 payment, and he did avoid jail time there by making the payment. Simple as that. There's a golfer that is facing charges after allegedly beating a goose to death with his club at a golf course in New York last week.
Whoa.
Yeah, witnesses say this Canada goose was struck by a golf ball first and was like kind of dazed. And then they say this golfer on the 14th hole proceeded to strike the goose several times with his club. He walked away and then noticed that the goose was still moving, so came back and started hitting the goose again. Now, these witnesses do say that the golfer was trying to put the goose out of its misery after it was drilled by a golf ball.
Yeah.
But whether or not that was actually the case, the golfer has been charged with committing 1 count of animal cruelty.
Do you remember Curb Your Enthusiasm? You ever see the one where they killed a goose? He said it was a swan.
Yes.
Remember, a goose is not a swan.
I've never seen that one, but I can imagine.
Yeah.
Geese are awful creatures. They're mean. They hiss at you.
They're yummy. I mean, there's an easier way than beating it with a golf club.
Yeah. No, you can't do that. And speaking of golf, I've got another story. There's a man that's actually fighting for his life in Arizona after he was stung thousands of times by bees while he was working at a golf course. He was like a maintenance worker. And there was 2 golfers that actually witnessed the attack, and they thought the guy was kind of covered in grass clippings because they were so far away, until they realized that no, he was just being swarmed with bees, which is wild. If firefighters came, they had to use the foam spray to kind of rescue this guy. And it sounds like he's actually fighting for his life. He's still in the hospital since Monday.
Hope they didn't get impaled by all those bees.
I can imagine that.
I know,
That's a lot of impalements.
Yeah.
I know. Unbelievable. Multiple.
So you might remember a year ago this week, there was a Yankees fan that went viral because he poked a hole in his hot dog that he was eating at a game and then used it as a straw to drink his beer.
Oh, yeah,
And it
I
went
do
viral
remember
because
that.
some people were like, oh, that's genius. Other people's were like, that's disgusting.
Right.
So there was a big debate. Well, now Oscar Mayer is getting in on this action and paying tribute to this guy. They're giving away replica hot dog straws made of silicone. So they're not actually hot dogs, but they're straws that resemble a hot dog. And
Don't they usually
say,
use those at like bachelorette parties?
yeah, but those are not actually hot. Well, yes, they do. But there's other parts to that
Yes.
hot dog that
Yes.
are normally on those straws. Yes. They're doing a limited number per day, and you can go sign up at oscarmayer.com/hot dog straw if you'd like your own.
Your own wiener straw.
Exactly.
There's lots of holes in those, too.
Just depends. Never mind.
By the way, John, I was thinking about you yesterday
Oh, all right.
By the way.
Here we go.
because
Oh, no. Oh,
no,
no.
something- no,
I wonder what it is
No,
about
man,
me.
it's something-
that happens that jogs his memory about me.
no, because you were talking about like a burger or something before. Anyway,
Okay.
I went to Fuddruckers
Yeah.
and they had a choice of they had an elk burger on the menu.
Oh, did you get it?
I was going to, but the lady, I said, "How's the elk burger?" She goes, "I've never had it, but people say it's not that good."
Oh, wow. What a great
Yes.
employee.
So I
Yes.
didn't-
Head of sales.
I didn't
The
get
most expensive burger we have, but don't get it. It's
No,
not
actually, it
that
was
great.
not the most expensive.
Okay.
You should try it.
I was thinking about it.
I'm telling you, elk meat is.
So what I wanted her to tell me is, does it taste like hamburger? And she said, no, it's
It tastes like elk.
it's deer.
It's like venison.
I said, you
Yeah.
know what? Just give me a cheeseburger with grilled onions and some onion
Give me
rings.
my go-to.
That's some onion rings.
Yeah, it's some onion rings on the side. Yeah,
All right, thank you.
extra onion rings.
Thank you very much, Heather. All right. By the way, AJ Hinch will join us coming up next. The reason I was at Fuddruckers because I was on my way to see the good folks at Sarah Whalen Chevrolet. That's right. Ben Brown's crew, Darren Eulig, they're amazing people. Start checking off your road trip bucket list. Hit the road, a brand new Silverado or Equinox from Sarah Whalen Chevrolet. With Silverado, you have everything you need for your road trip adventures. Or if an SUV is more your taste, Equinox can take you wherever you want to go in style. And because Sarah Whalen is the #1 volume Chevy dealer in the country, they have a huge inventory of brand new Silverados, and Equinox is ready for you to take home today with even more arriving daily. Sarah Whalen Chevrolet, 17.5 at Van Dyke and Sterling Heights. Call 800-WHALEN-1 or go to sarahwhalen.com. Find new roads. Pat Caputo says that Lions drafting, here's the headline, the Lions drafting Jamison Williams, glaring mistake. Now, I don't know, I don't remember per se whether Pat was in favor of the trade up and selection of Jamison Williams or not.
Right.
But he is correct. If he doesn't pan out, it will be a colossal mistake because he says the Lions would have had 32 and 34 because of the Stafford trade and could have taken, Christian Watson with either pick. And they could have also taken Jalen Petrie, the safety, or, Kenneth Walker III, any of those guys, instead of taking Jamison Williams, not to mention signed from Georgia, who was taken or seen, right?
Seen, yeah.
He was taken by Minnesota and he got hurt. But yes, there were other people out there.
Well, I would also take it to say that even if they made the trade, the selection of Jamison Williams is, by his estimation, a failure because you could have had Jordan Davis. You could have had a number of different players.
Yes.
I'm not willing to go there yet. Am I disappointed? Sure. But I'm
You're going to explain to these people what the hell's going on in Ann Arbor. I can't make sense of it.
You think I have all the answers to this?
It's your cult.
Okay.
It's Emgo Costa.
Here it is.
Excuse me, I have to get a screwdriver and fix him.
You go ahead and do that. For people who may have heard, and for those who have not, Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines have, that too, self-imposed suspension, but only 3 games. The deal that fell through was 4 games. Fell through because the NCAA felt like 4 games wasn't enough. So what does Michigan do? They turn around and say only 3. Do they think that's going to be sufficient? Am I missing something with this?
Yeah, you're missing. Why would you self-impose in the first place? History has already shown you self-imposing doesn't really matter. Why would you self-impose when you put a deal before them that you would not agree to? The Committee on Infractions rejected your deal at 4.
Mm-hmm.
But you think 3 is doing something?
So what are we missing?
I don't know.
I know you don't like getting inside the head of the Michigan Brain Trust.
I don't think one Lion gets enough love. I think it's clear that the organization loves this guy. I think there's plenty to support that the organization loves this guy. And I think we gloss over his contributions. And I am ready to stop that and start an appreciation thread on this Carson Anderson message board for Khalif Raymond. This guy, he checks a lot of the boxes in a player that Detroit would love. Small school guy, had to kind of scrap and claw even to get looked at coming out of Holy Cross. I think he had to go like Boston College's pro day to get noticed, bounced around, played for 3 other teams, settles in Detroit, and he's caught, before he got to Detroit in 4 seasons, the guy caught 19 passes in 4 seasons. His first year in Detroit, he catches 48 passes. Second year in Detroit, he catches 47 passes. Last year,
Pat Caputo says that Lions drafting, here's the headline, the Lions drafting Jameson Williams, glaring mistake. Now, I don't know, I don't remember per se whether Pat was in favor of the trade up and selection of Jameson Williams or not.
Right.
But he is correct. If he doesn't pan out, it will be a colossal mistake, because he says the Lions would have had 32 and 34 because of the Stafford trade, and could have taken, Christian Watson with either pick, and they could have also taken Jalen Petrie, the safety, or Kenneth Walker III, any of those guys, instead of taking Jameson Williams. Not to mention Sign from Georgia, who was taken, or Seen, right?
Seen, yeah.
He was taken by Minnesota and he got hurt. But yes, there were other people out there.
Well, I would also take it to say that even if they made the trade, the selection of Jameson Williams is, by his estimation, a failure because you could have had Jordan Davis. You could have had a number of different players.
Yes.
I'm not willing to go there yet. Am I disappointed? Sure. But I'm
You're going to explain to these people what the hell's going on in Ann Arbor. I can't make sense of it.
You think I have like all the answers to this?
It's your cult.
Okay.
It's Emgo Costa.
Here it is.
Excuse me, I have to get a screwdriver and fix them.
You go ahead and do that. For people who may have heard, and for those who have not, Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines have, that too, self-imposed suspension, but only 3 games. The deal that fell through was 4 games. Fell through because the NCAA felt like 4 games wasn't enough. So what does Michigan do? They turn around and say only 3. Do they think that's going to be sufficient? Am I missing something with this?
Yeah, you're missing. Why would you self-impose?
Hey, when I've got questions about my
place?
finances, I turn to my bank, and that's First
History has
Merchants
already
Bank.
shown you
I know that they're
self-imposing
attentive, and
doesn't
local
really
bankers
matter.
are 100% interested in
Why would
listening
you
to my situation and in
self-impose
helping
when
me find
you
the
put a
answers
deal
that I need.
before them that
First
you-
Merchants doesn't provide cookie cutter solutions or check off boxes when it comes to financial advice. They take the time to learn about my life, my personal and financial goals, and they work with me to build a plan that fits my situation. That's because First Merchants really cares. They care about you as an individual, as a person, not just as a number on a spreadsheet. And they're going to do all they can to help their customers and their communities succeed. You can count on that since First Merchants, as I mentioned before, is staffed by local bankers who know and are passionate about the needs of the local community. It's their community as well, and we know that we all have to work together to help it prosper. To get started on your personalized financial solution today, you can visit them at firstmerchants.com. That's firstmerchants.com, member FDIC.
For years, you've heard me talk about Capital Mortgage Funding. That's right, years. I mean, over 30 years. Capital Mortgage Funding, the best mortgage banker. They're consistent. Harry Glanz, Dan Burke, they've been around helping you guys with your mortgages. And like I said, consistent. You know, you put on the television and you see Glanz and Burke, you say, well, those guys are kind of weird looking. But you know they're Capital Mortgage Funding. Other guys, you know, you see them for a company, you say, wait a second, that guy, he worked at this place then, this place 10 years ago, and this place before that. You don't know what you're going to get. Capital Mortgage Funding, they're part of the community. They have been for years. They make the whole mortgage process smooth, easy, and hassle-free. They are the best. You must get pre-approved before going out and walking through a home. Capital Mortgage Funding will show you the way. They do it the right way. Capital Mortgage Funding, 1-800-LOW-RATE, the best mortgage banker. And let's do the D. We're going to the D next. Excuse me. We're going to the D before the Lions take on the Kansas City Chiefs. That's right. We're doing our show Friday morning after that game. Hopefully it'll be a Lions win. We're going to have a great time at the D as well, because you do too, because the D is downtown where the odds are the best. And downtown is so much fun. Fremont Street's a blast. The D has all the comforts of home as far as food goes. Joe Vaccari's Andiamo Italian Steakhouse. They also have American Coney Island. And if you stay at the D, you get 2 free passes for Stadium Swim at the amazing Circa. The Long Bar always hopping at the D Las Vegas. They also have Bacon Nation, where I know John Jansen's going to be when we are in Vegas. So the best bang for your buck is the D Las Vegas. Go to thed.com. Book your room today. The D Las Vegas, your home for Detroit sports in Las Vegas. Don't forget Tiger Baseball this afternoon right here on 97.1 The Ticket. Tigers take on the Chicago Cubs. Tarek Skubal on the hill. Always great talking to AJ. I mean, and you know, the fact that they're playing well and like we said, fun to watch. It's a cool thing.
It's nice to be able to have some positive conversations and ask some questions. Yeah, there's still other ones you've got to ask because they're not where they want to be. But when you look at 3, now 4 possible building blocks, it's fun to watch and fun to talk to them about.
Yes. And now, John, we all can agree that Urban Meyer, when he was in Jacksonville, was an utter disgrace, a disaster. It didn't work. I understand trying. I would have no problem if the Lions would have tried to hire Urban Meyer.
Well, I would have.
Yeah, well,
I didn't
whatever.
think it would work to begin with. But,
anyway, it didn't work. But there's a story, and there's a documentary that's out called Swamp King about Florida football under Urban from 2005 to 2010. And I'm looking forward to seeing it because they ran the gamut between, Tim Tebow and Aaron Hernandez. You talk about going from one end of the spectrum to the other, right? But there's a story that one of the players shared. And he played in the NFL, linebacker Brandon Seiler. He was a 4-star recruit from Orlando. And he tells this story that he says that he had a bit of a drinking problem while he was in Gainesville. He says, quote, "I drank alcohol a lot. I like to drink." Okay. So one day, according to Seiler, Meyer calls him into his office and told him that he knew that he was going to talk to Seiler's parents about his behavior. But that proved to be a mistake. Quote, according to Seiler, he told the show, My mom's a character. My stepdad, he had 13 gold teeth in his mouth, and my mom got gold teeth in her mouth. They both got 10 tattoos. So they show up on campus. They've been drinking all day, and my mama says, Myers, listen, my son came here to win a national championship and go to the NFL. So if you ain't here to do that, then you need to get out of the way. This ain't Utah.
Myers?
Myers.
That's
Yes.
so great.
Myers. Yeah, like they were here, putting the S on everything.
I think some portion of that needs to be in Who Said It.
Maybe.
Maybe the gold teeth part.
Yeah.
You said my.
Yeah. I said my.
There's something.
My mom got gold teeth in her.
Oh, all
Yeah.
right.
Oh, yeah. He's
you talking about your mom.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, my mom doesn't have gold teeth in her mouth. Although she is 90. That's for damn sure. All right. Yeah. So that would. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and Meyer's response, according to Seiler, is Meyer, says, come here, gives me a hug and says, you just keep doing what you're doing. That's the craziest set of parents I've ever met. So, no intervention.
Florida football. Ladies and gentlemen, Carson Anderson coming up next. Doug Karsh is here. Hi, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing great. You guys, so it just so happened that yesterday my family got in the car at around 9:55 and turned the show on.
Oh,
And they heard
they witnessed
the
the
two
celebration.
Grand Slam. And they were laughing really hard because I got a movie question. And they were also laughing really hard because one of my daughter's best friends just enrolled in Tulane. And
wow.
She's gonna be the Green Wave.
But I mean, I knew the Green Wave before, but, still, they thought it was great. And I, with the news today, I am looking forward to working with Mike Stone on days when Gator isn't in, and I am just buckling up for the random moments.
Hold
of
on.
Awkward comments out of the
yeah.
blue, and
I don't. Have we ever done a show together?
I don't think we have.
No.
We've been on the air. We've
Yes.
obviously moments like this.
Yes.
I may linger for that one. I may pick up something that Stoney does.
You
and that,
definitely will not be used to it because you get in here when at 8:30, something like that.
Between 8 and 8:30.
Yeah, well, I'll probably be here around the same time.
Yes.
And that'll be definitely different for you.
Wow.
From
I
now
won't be-
until mid-February, Mike Stone taking his shots.
Here we go.
Well, I mean, we all
Once
do.
it begins.
We all do with that. I mean, come on.
Yes.
I have no complaints about my current work.
I know.
But I'll just make.
we just
Publicly.
make fun of everybody. That's
Yes.
all. That's what we do. It's,
I've learned a lot. Honestly, I've learned a lot being around you, talking with you, watching you work, and I have a ton of respect.
Thank
and
you.
this isn't a goodbye.
I
you're still
know.
going to be
I
around.
know.
Your role's just changing. And
yeah, I'll be here for
I think
3
for
years,
me-
hopefully.
Yeah.
For me, it's going to be great. I love the idea of doing shows with Stoney.
Yeah. We also like the idea of when you're on vacation of me doing shows with Gator.
Yes, I do. I think that will be a good thing as
Yes,
well.
yes. So we'll do that in reverse. How do you like when your host shows up at the kickoff?
It's going to be his show. I'm making him drive.
Can we negotiate on that?
Yes, we can.
No, I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we got lots to talk about today.
Yes, absolutely. Those high flying tigers.
Yeah. So there's been an issue, and I've heard Costa use the "is it something or nothing?"
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about this. Is it something or nothing as it pertains to the most anticipated Detroit Lions season ever?
All right. Carson Anderson next. Thanks, everybody. 97 won the ticket.
I don't think one Lion gets enough love. I think it's clear that the organization loves this guy. Yep, hump day indeed. Doug Karsch, Gator out today. Hope you're doing well. Great to be with you, and there's a lot to talk about today. And seriously, all kidding aside, people have to, I don't have to, but I hope people recognize and understand what a great broadcaster and person Mike Stone is. I have learned a ton. I have learned watching Stoney, listening to Stoney, taking notes, his style. I mean, we're different, but I think I'm better at this job personally because of Mike Stone. And look, there's different styles, and people like different, people like different styles, and it's good. It's great. I like to laugh that I've got very good friends who stream another show from out of town instead of listening to me, and that's okay. They're big fans of a national host. But at the end of the day, we all have kind of carved out whatever niche that we have in this community, and Stoney has been around for so long and so successful. It's so hard to do it for as long as Mike Stone has, and I think his new role is going to be great here at the station. I'm very much looking forward to some of the fill-in shows that Mike will be doing with myself, with Gator, and with everybody. And, of course, he'll be around for the football season. So hopefully it'll be the kind of season that gets sent off on a good note. He's not really going anywhere. His just role is changing. Here at 97.1 The Ticket, he's probably happy to be off mornings, which is a tough shift. I worked it for a week once. I remember asking the people that were the regulars on the show at the time, I said, hey, morning radio, like, how long does it take to get used to the getting up at 4 a.m. and then, that you're kind of moving your clock? And they said, you never get used to it. It's tough. Now, the funny thing is, Jansen is such a morning guy. He's almost wired for it. As long as I have known John Jansen, which is a better part of a decade that I've known him personally. I mean, I've known him back to when he was a player, but I've gotten to know him personally over the better part of the last decade. John has always been a rise and shine kind of guy who operated on very little sleep. It's just the way he is wired. And I think in some ways it's a blessing. In some ways it's a curse. But I think for him, the morning show is perfect. And look, Stoney's done a great job in the morning. Who am I kidding? But, one of the great things about working morning radio is you get your first crack. You get the first crack the next day at everything that happened the night before. So, you're the person that people turn on in the morning, and your opinions kind of echo through the day, and getting out of work, having a good portion of your day left. Now, it's tough. It's tough to be up that early. It's not like your shift starts when the show starts. Your shift starts well before, in most cases, the show starts. So those guys are in here basically in the middle of the night. So anyway, I look forward to Mike's new role here at the station. As I mentioned, Gators off today. We got Tiger baseball this afternoon, and we will get to some Tiger stuff a little bit later on because they have suddenly, late in the season, morphed into a very interesting team, and I'm having fun watching this. But Lions are still top of mind as 2 weeks from tomorrow, they open their season. A week from Friday, Michigan State opens against Central Michigan, and a week from Saturday, Michigan opens against East Carolina. This is always an exciting time with the anticipation of the coming football season. Weather starts to settle down a little bit. The heat from the summer, you get that cool crispness in the air. You get colder nights. You hear the whistles from the local high school. You hear bands practicing, kids getting ready to go back to school, pumpkin spice lattes become available. It's all part of the annual ritual of ringing in football season. I saw something last night for the first time. Oktoberfest. All of this gets me excited for the coming football season. And we will start with yesterday's Detroit Lions practice. News out of that practice, probably the most newsworthy thing that came out of that practice was that Amon-Ra St. Brown, it sounds like he is going to be fine. Dan Campbell basically gave glowing reports of his health, said he's not going to play Friday. But the takeaway, if you watched it, was that if they had a regular season game this week, Amon-Ra would be able to play, which is great news. But they went hard yesterday. Like, yesterday was a hard-hitting practice. All the observers, everybody was, first of all, Dan Campbell in his pre-practice meeting with the media said, look, today's a big day. And it felt like they were trying to simulate a game for the starters. And, I mean, they can obviously play the starters Friday if they choose, but you know, there was the implication from Dan Campbell that they weren't going to do that. And there was also the acknowledgement that yesterday was going to be a very hard practice. And it was. It was hard hitting. There was guys that got injured, although nothing real serious, a lot of minor stuff. But they, full hitting, take you to the ground kind of football practice, which seems to be the focus of the preparation for the ones. So, that's new. It's something to get used to. There's different variables. We're going into this season with a different expectation, with a team that's prepared to win, a team that is a little bit veteran, but they're not that old. But they seem to have guys that are going to play key roles that have played. And so the emphasis on the preseason games it's almost been completely removed. It's all about joint practices and now the team practice. They hit for 2 days against the Giants 2 weeks ago. They hit for 1 day against the Jags last week and then did shells the other. And then they hit each other yesterday. And this seems to be the bulk of their, in quotes, live work to get ready for Kansas City 2 weeks from tomorrow. The question is, will they be ready? And I know we've talked about it this week, but yesterday Dan Campbell spoke about it, and we need to sort of quantify what they're up against here. Because, I mean, let's face it, this season has premium. Every game has premium. There's no more, hey, this guy should get reps because he's a young guy and he's part of the future. There's no more, well, they don't have a great kicker, but it doesn't matter because they're not playing to win. And I'm not saying they don't have a great kicker, but that was something was talked about last year. There's no more, hey, they need to get a backup quarterback because someday they might need a guy to win. No, they're trying to win now. They're trying to win now. And they're up against a tough schedule right out of the gate with 2 playoff teams. And obviously the one on the road is the defending Super Bowl champs. That's one. And they're up against history. Long-term history, short-term history. And while they've established a great practice culture, work ethic, they need something that they don't have yet, and that is a full season live NFL game culture, which we think comes with. We think when you're practicing right and you're drafting the right guys and you're setting the tone and you're getting the most out of them, that it should have that trickle-down effect to the regular season. But there's something to be said for on Sundays when the game's on the line, making the plays and getting the job done. But they're up against it. We'll play what Dan Campbell had to say about it coming up at 10:18, plus your phone calls and feedback. It's Carson Anderson, open lines here on 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, Hall Financial, the lender that saved Michigan residents millions, is reinventing home lending with their exclusive no-fee home loan. I complain about fees all the time. I did it a few weeks ago. Don't tack on fees. Just tell me the actual price. Well, Hall Financial is proud to now Michigan's first no-fee home loan, exclusive to Hall Financial clients. Even better, with a no-fee loan, you stay locked into the no-fee program, ensuring you don't pay fees to Hall Financial when it's time to refi. If you aren't working with Hall Financial on your home loan, you're overpaying. no-fee loan applies to new purchases and refis. Call Hall Financial right now to learn more about the no-fee home loan option. 866-CALL-HALL. That's 866-CALL-HALL. Chat with them online. CallHallFirst.com. That's CallHallFirst.com. I don't think one Lion gets enough love. I think it's clear that the organization loves this guy. I think there's plenty to support that the organization loves this guy. And I think we gloss over his contributions. And I am ready to stop that and start an appreciation thread on this Carson Anderson message board for Khalif Raymond. This guy, he checks a lot of the boxes in a player that Detroit would love. Tigers win last night. Small school guy.
Good to see Parker Meadows
kind
contributes.
Of scrap and claw, even to get looked at coming out of Holy Cross.
I just watching this thing last night, and I'm going, with the catch and the triple, and Tork's play lately, and Carpenter's play lately, and what Riley Green has turned it into, and I'm just sitting there going, I wonder what Alavila thinks. But at the end of the day, understand why they did what they did, and I'm okay with it for sure. But I wonder what Alavila thinks, and a guy who's responsible for bringing a lot of these players in, and also had too many swings and misses, right? But still, it's good to see something from the system start to be rewarding. Hopefully, it's long-term rewarding
because it's been a drought, man. It's been a drought of production from players in the system, everyday players. They had some pitching, but even then, when they were really good, they went outside for more than a lot more regular players, position players. But all right, here we go. Dan Campbell speaking yesterday before practice. So here's the history they're up against. Let me just start with this. And I'm not talking about the 60-year history. I'm talking about under Dan Campbell. And Jim Costa, I think it was him that's kind of started this. Is it something or nothing? In 2021, Dan Campbell's first year, they started 0-10-1. And then they finished 3-3. Last year, they started 1-6 and finished 8-2. So those starts are 1-16-1, and those finishes are 11-5. We can dismiss the first year as the first year of a rebuild and the start of a purge, and they weren't trying to win. And I think that's accurate, but it was still a slow start compared to the finish. Last year was them starting to build up and starting to show some signs of progress, but they still started 1-6. So we entered this third season, and our slow start's a thing. Is this a thing that needs to get addressed and get better, or is this not a thing? Like it's first of all, you could say 2 years is not enough sample size, or you could say look where they were in their progression of building a roster. But they are one of the biggest underdogs in week 1. And they're playing a playoff team at home in week 2 that came into Detroit and beat Detroit last year. And the Lions will be favored in that week 2 game, but they still, it's not like they just roll out the helmets and get a dub, right? I mean, it's going to take some work. So with that said, Dan Campbell spoke a little bit about the starters playing in the Carolina game. Okay. He was asked, do you anticipate playing some starters in the Carolina game coming up on Friday? And here's what the head coach of the Lions said. Okay. Very much like the first 2 games. Now, first game, 6 offensive linemen sat out. Dave Montgomery sat out. Jared Goff sat out. The second game, there were 14 offensive regulars. Even more people sat out. 9 defensive regulars sat out. And again, guys who played in the first game sat out the second game. And he said it's going to depend on how yesterday and today go. But yesterday, I think by all accounts, was a very physical and successful practice. So them stepping into live action on Friday seems unlikely. Then one of the questions came up, what are you losing by not playing in games, right? I mean, it's one thing to do it in practice and joint practices, but it's a different thing when you step on the field in front of fans and the lights are on and people are yelling and the TV cameras are there and you're on the stage. What are you losing when you don't play guys in those games? Here's what Dan Campbell said. Okay. So Campbell is confident that everything or much of what they get out of games, they can mimic in practice. The Chiefs played Patrick Mahomes 3 series in their last preseason game. They don't need to play Patrick Mahomes at all, but they did. Andy Reid thinks it's important, or Patrick Mahomes thinks it's important, and they're the defending Super Bowl champ. Here in Detroit, we're doing it a different way. Now, it doesn't mean it's wrong, but slow starts have been 2 years under Dan Campbell. 0-10-1, 1-6. I tend to lean towards this is not like slow starts isn't on Dan Campbell. I think it's more about where their roster was and watching them progress as a roster, get better, young players, Kirby Joseph, James Houston coming on, Malcolm Rodriguez getting used to the speed. I think there was a meshing of the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. You know, they actually did get healthier as the year went on. So I don't personally think slow starts is a thing under Dan Campbell. But I think it's worth talking about. And whether or not what they are doing now is the best approach to the most anticipated Lions season, quite frankly, in my lifetime. And we can talk about other seasons and how fired up people were. You know what? There wasn't nearly the intense media scrutiny. I mean, that's changed in the last 10 to 15 years with the way social media works and the instantaneous response to everything and just the market flooded with all kinds of media options. I think that's led to this being the most intense build up to a season in my lifetime. And I mean, certainly when they won the NFL championship, there wasn't nearly the intense media scrutiny that back then in the 50s. So 248-539-9797. How you feeling about this? Are we worried about the start? Are they doing the right thing? Is Dan Campbell playing the cards correctly? Because they're doing it different than the team they're playing against. Geno Smith played, like Seattle's played their starters too, I'm pretty sure. So we're doing it different than others. And historically, when Detroit goes against the grain, hasn't been great. But I zero out the counter every time a new regime takes over and base my analysis on what they're doing based on what they do, not what previous GMs and previous coaches did. So I'm judging these guys on these 2 years, but that does include a track record of slow starts.
I think I think you should point out also that the Chiefs do not have joint practices.
No.
So maybe their only time to really hit, someone else, not a Chief, is during the preseason games, and to be hit by someone else, not a Chief. So in Seattle, I'm looking at the preseason or the joint practice schedules. I don't think the Seahawks have joint practices as well. So to me, don't play the starters at all. Preseason means nothing to me, especially because you have the joint practices the Lions have been having. They had some spirited ones with the Giants, and they had some spirited ones this the past one with the Jags, right? They're good. St. Brown, rest up. Everyone else, offensive line, rest up. Goff, you're good. Everyone else who's trying to make a spot on this team, you better let it fly. This is your last chance, right?
Yep. Campbell talked about how intense this Friday is going to be for some guys and that minds can be changed in this week when it comes to roster spots. All right, we'll get to your phone calls and feedback coming up. Carson Anderson, Open Minds. Are they doing this right? Are they doing it right? 97.1 The Ticket. I don't think one Lion gets enough love. I think it's clear that the organization loves this guy. I think there's plenty to support that the organization loves this guy. And I think we gloss over his contributions. And I am ready to stop that and start an appreciation. Doug Harsh, Gator out today. 248-539-9797. Talking a lot about this Chiefs game, really, in the start to this season. Heavy premium on this Detroit Lions season. And look, the Lions, yesterday, Dan Campbell said, yeah, game 3 is probably going to be a lot like game 1 and 2 in terms of the regulars playing and the starters playing. They went out and they had a really physical practice yesterday, which seems to be what they are choosing to do to get ready for this season. And slow starts have been part of the 2 years under Dan Campbell. I don't think it's a thing personally. I think it's more a reflection of where the roster was. The first year, I didn't have high expectations for on the field. The second year, they started to turn the corner, but it was after a slow start. But, you saw players get up to speed, and actually the team got healthier as the year went on. Now here in year 3, I mean, talk about jumping right into the fire. You get the defending Super Bowl champ at their place in a primetime game. It's a tough deal. and 0-1 is not a slow start. 0-2, given the expectation, that would be a disappointing start. Would be a disappointing start. I don't know if I'd put it in the slow start category, but it would be a disappointing start. There is no... I wouldn't be looking for silver linings. That's...
It would slow the hype train down a little bit.
I think more than a little bit.
But these are two
by the way, we'd be flooded with same old Lions.
Oh, of course we will, because that's just how that's how fans react. But it's 2 playoff teams from the year before. One of them, the defending Super Bowl champions. It's not outrageous. The Lions might start 0-2, and from the years past, slow starts. I agree with you. It was a roster thing. It was a talent issue. It was a coaching issue. A lot of those coaches aren't even here anymore, or at least a few of them aren't even here anymore. It was them adapting to the new coaching staff and the new changes and strategy and plays, that it took time. And it took time to get the roster in that would adapt to these plays and this coaching. This team is a different roster than 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The way they're approaching preseason, I have zero problem with. It's the joint practices. They're getting more, to me, out of joint practices than they are in 2 or 3 series in a preseason game. At least the starters and veterans. To me, the only ones that maybe need to put on the pads and see some time in the preseason are the rookies, because this is the NFL now, and they've never been in an NFL game, preseason or regular season. So when Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell and Brian Branch and Sam Laporta are out there, I think it's good for a couple series just because the bright lights are different. The NFL atmosphere is different. This isn't college. I don't care if you came from a big school or a small school. Other than that, though, joint practices are fine with me. Chiefs didn't have any. Seahawks didn't have any. They got to get some live bullets somewhere, and that's preseason for them.
248-539-9797. Let's go to Dave here on 97 on the ticket. Hi, Dave.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Good. The Lions have proven a couple of things to me over the last couple of years, and that is they know how to get a team better throughout the season. And I'm sure that's the goal for every team, but I think when you have, primarily young guys where there's more growth opportunity, coaching, things like that, I just think that's kind of what he's betting on for this year even. I mean, they're not going to be as good against Kansas City, most likely, as they are going to be near the end of the season. And I'm sure the bet he's making is, the difference between winning and losing against Kansas City isn't going to be playing some starters against Carolina. I mean, I think that's just the bet he's going to make. We're better off being healthier and rolling the dice that way, get it in practice, controlled, all that. So, if we're going to have confidence in Dan and the organization overall and drafting and free agency, then I think we need to, you don't have to, but I know I want to stick with, hey, I'm trusting them with all this stuff. They haven't really let me down over the last 2 years. I think they're maybe ahead of where a lot of us thought they might be at this stage. And I think they're doing it the right way.
So here's the thing. It's a risk, right? I mean, we're talking about they playing players in preseason games is a risk. Not playing players in preseason games is also a risk. And the risk of playing players, of course, is that they can get hurt. And the risk of not playing players is that they won't be ready as they could be for the regular season. I mean, look, it's funny because I feel like the last few years in watching NFL football, one of the things that just unfortunately is part of the game is injuries frequently determine who's standing at the end.
Right.
And it's just part of the game that's unpredictable, and it takes an element of luck. And you want to take all of the luck out of it. You want it to be, you prepare your team, you step on the field, and you have the better team, the better scheme, the better coaching staff, and you go out and win games. But it doesn't always happen that way. And a lot of times luck plays a role. And so they're just trying to stay. It was clear, and I think we have one more soundbite from Dan Campbell to play. It's clear that staying healthy is a huge, it's the biggest part of this decision. He thinks the controlled environment of practice hitting, going live in practice, is better than in games.
Well, they've proven to me that when they can field a healthy team, and they did that more later in the season than they did earlier, we saw the results. I mean, they're talented, and I think we all are looking at the defense as not just a slight uptick from last year, but a major, competitive every game against whoever we play. And so, the offense, because they don't play against Carolina, might have a slower start, and it takes a little while to get the rust off. But, I think he has confidence in the defense to keep them in it, and the offense is going to get their footing. By the time halftime comes around, whether they played any games against Carolina or not, it's not going to matter. It's, here they are. They got to adjust on the fly. And so, again, I just think they have a good enough team to go this way.
All right. Hey, Dave, thank you for the phone call. Wow. I just looked at this feedback. My opinion that the slow starts is not a thing, not popular. Nick writes in, why would we do a full hard practice yesterday and not play half of a football game on Friday? That's officially league rules, time clock, crowd, etc. Next one. In 2 seasons under Dan Campbell, the Lions are 2-16 in their first 8 games to start the season. How is that not a problem? Next one. Do we need another slow start to prove that playing in the preseason has merit? Dan Campbell needs to learn from his mistakes or we'll be doomed. Next one. The Lions won't be ready. Need game reps. Bet the house on KC. Okay. So people think this is a mistake.
I don't want to do this because we've always poo-pooed this. But Nate, I remind everyone the 4-0 preseason start. Okay. But so what does this mean?
It's not it's not you know better. You know better. It's not about the winning and losing. It's about the players getting ready.
There are a million different ways to do this in this league to win. Some teams have an easy training camp. They let the veterans take off the entire training camp sometimes. Mm-hmm. Other teams have hard-ass coaches where everyone's running up a hill at the end of every practice. I don't care who you are. There's like I said, there's a bunch of ways to do this. Dan Campbell's approach, and I actually agree with it, is using the joint practices. Now, the game time, the real game time situations and the refs and the rules, they have refs out there. They're playing by still these same NFL rules. It's not like prison rules in practice. Although they get in scuffles and things like that, they still have to, catch the ball with 2 feet in bounds. You can't be offsides. They have refs. They have all that. The thing about joint practices is the intensity's up because you're not practicing against your own teammates. And secondly, if something goes wrong, you can immediately correct it and try to do it again and run because these coaches are really good with each other about practices. They want their team to get better, and they're helping the other team get better by, aligning with how they want to run practice. So in a game or a preseason game, if they run the goal line offense wrong, it's over. They just go back to the iPad or the tablet and then just talk about it. But I think in the joint practices, you can actually do something about it right away.
So the idea, too, that they are doing this. Last year, they sat starters, but not as much as this. Last year, Jared Goff played in the first preseason game. DeAndre Swift played in the first preseason game. Amon-Ra St. Brown played in 2. Khalif Raymond, who's not playing in preseason games this year, played in preseason games multiple last year. So they're gearing it back even more than they did in the past.
What does that tell you about the expectations? What they were last year compared to this year, and what they have to gain and lose by playing starters.
Amon-Ra St. Brown wasn't going into last year what we think he is going into this year, right? I mean, they're ahead of where they were, so that's a difference as well.
That's my point.
I mean, here are people these texts that came in bang, 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 complaining about not playing the starters it's interesting. I mean, you heard Dan Campbell's reasoning. Obviously, these people didn't buy it. Now that he's spoken about it, we brought it up again, but these people aren't buying it, and he is going further away from what they want. 248-539-9797. More your phone calls and feedback. Coming up, hey, discover how good your water can be, like our family did, with a new Kinetico system that removes up to 99% of contaminants in your water. They did a test on our city water, and I, quite frankly, was a little surprised what I saw. And remember this, if you're not filtering your water before you drink it, you are the filter. Don't be the filter. Get clean, purified water and reduce plastic bottle waste by calling 855-339-4242 or visit cgcwater.com. This is basically getting bottled water out of your tap. You save up to $1,000 on a K5 drinking water system when you purchase a Kinetico Premier Softener by calling 855-339-4242. Financing options available with approved credit. CGC Water Treatment and Plumbing, your authorized independent Kinetico dealer. I don't think one Lion gets enough love. I think it's clear that the organization loves this guy. I think there's plenty to support that the organization loves this guy. And I think we gloss over his contributions. And I am ready to stop that and start an appreciation thread on this Carson Anderson message board for Khalif Raymond. So Car Skater out today, 248-539-9797. Talk some Tigers a little bit later on. And Detroit would love. Small guy emerging as a star. We'll get to that today at 11:20. In the meantime, we're discussing coming out of Holy Cross. Look, Dan Campbell's doing it his way. And yesterday, I mean, all the reports were intense, hard-hitting practice. And then he also said the third preseason game is going to look a lot like the first two, which is not a lot of starters playing, a lot of key guys sitting out. So here we go. Premium on the season, last 2 years, slow starts. Is this the way to address it? 248-539-9797. It's kind of counterintuitive, but he's trying to keep this team healthy. He talked a little bit more about not playing guys and what they're hoping to accomplish. We'll get to that coming up. I'm a little surprised. I don't think the slow starts in 2 years is a reflection on poor preparation in the preseason. I think the slow starts in 2 years have been a reflection of where the roster has been. And I wasn't sure we really had much debate. And then the first four texts that come in, bam, 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 all people saying, this is Dan Campbell repeating a mistake. How's this not important? Doesn't make any sense to go hard yesterday when you can do it Friday. They need reps. Bet the house on KC. A summation of some of the first texts we got.
I think there's only going to be real debate that Friday after the game is if they get blown out. If the Lions look like a no-show, you know? And then I think that's when people are going to be like, hey, these guys didn't play in the preseason. But if it's within a score, which is supposed to be, I think most NFL games are anyways, but if it's within a score, you're playing on the road against the defending Super Bowl champs, and you put up a real fight. I know there are no moral victories anymore. I'm not saying that, Doug, but my point is about the preseason playing or not, whether it affected him. I mean, because you think if it's a close game, do you think if the Lions lose a close game, Doug, well, you go back and go, if only they'd play golf a series.
Actually, that's the thing.
Would you think that?
No, I wouldn't. I think we'll get that call. I think people will say, look at this mistake, look at that mistake. If guys had played, because at the end of a game, you tally up what led to what made the difference. I think people will blame lack of reps in the preseason more if it's a close game. Actually, they're going to blame it either way. Who am I kidding? If they get blown out, they'll blame it. And if they lose in a close game, they'll say maybe the difference would have been them just playing guys. It would have made a difference. But, I mean, it's if you play guys and they get hurt, then people ask, what the hell are you doing? Let's go to Victor. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Victor.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Okay.
Hey, great. So, listen, my main point that I'm going to go around with this is based off of what I heard Andrew Whitworth chimed in on this matter, I believe, like some point last week, was about like his feelings on this, because it was in regards to, oh gosh, the Chiefs played Patrick Mahomes. Can you believe it? And he's like, well, listen, my last season, playing for the Rams, I didn't go onto the field even once, but he's like, listen, it's imperative to get out there in the preseason to play live in front of these tens of thousands of fans and loud, because that allows you to shake off the nerves. And he's like, man, when I went out there for week one game, I had those nerves. This is a guy who's played over a decade in the league, for a great roster. This guy's nervous, and you're like, man, that's crazy. And it makes sense. There's a huge difference from doing contact in a controlled environment, no referees, none of that nonsense. It's all controlled. Okay, now we're going to do a 2-minute drill. Now we're going to do goal line. No. Now this is unscripted. Go at it. Tens of thousands of fans screaming. You can't hear. You're, oh my gosh, where's the miscommunication? How can we do that? Now, not just to say that, let's stack on top of that. The Lions are very young. very young.
Well, I mean, the one thing I'd say is you're not dealing with rabid fans where you can't hear during a preseason game for the most part. In Detroit, they were saying, and that's what made it so unusual, was the Giants had to go on a silent count because fans in Ford Field were so loud. Most preseason games are dead.
But it's not just that, though. It's just the nerves of now. I'm under the lights. Cameras are on me. We're playing live around the nation right now. That's a different energy, and then that's gonna stack on top. You're gonna get miscommunications with these young kids. You're gonna get mishaps and mistakes happen, and we're not just talking. You're going to a hostile environment. You're going to one of the most difficult stadiums to play in Arrowhead.
Yep.
And you're playing against the defending Super Bowl champions, and they said, you know what? We're going to knock off this rust. We're coming in ready to go, just straight to the wall, and because they're not taking the Lions lightly.
You're right, but honestly, you're not getting anything close to that intensity in a preseason game. I think the Whitworth stuff is interesting. I do think it's interesting. But they're playing one road preseason game at Carolina. I am highly skeptical that it's going to be a hostile environment. Right? I mean, it's one road preseason game. The only thing you could do is have Dan Campbell tell the fans in Detroit, hey, we need to work on playing in a hostile environment where you guys scream during our first offensive possession at Ford Field. But there's no way that playing starters at Carolina is going to get them for the intensity at Kansas City. Am I wrong?
No, you're not going to replicate a real regular season intensity of a game. But that's why I said for the young guys, just to maybe experience coming out of the tunnel with pads on and seeing, I guess it's maybe tens of thousands because they ain't going to be like 60,000.
No.
Right? Especially for the last preseason game. I think nerves for every player, whether you're a rookie or veteran, is there.
I think that point was relevant. I mean, if Whitworth is saying it for as long as he played in the league, I tend to believe that. But
yeah, but is it nervous energy or is it like peed on your leg nervous? There's a difference, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think Whitworth was like, turn around and get me out of here. But yeah, when you suit them up, I think there's positive nervous energy that goes through a lot of guys. But with the veterans, I think it comes and goes quick. Once you snap the ball, right? Once you get a first hit, I think most of the guys is like that. But I would be more concerned with the younger guys if that's a caller is concerned about.
248-539-9797. Feedback to the same number. You can send us text to 248-539-9797. From an unnamed texter, I think Campbell's still trying to find the right mix for the preseason and starters. I love what he's doing now with joint practices. They seem to be getting a lot out of it and are able to work on situational football. Hinch should do the same thing in spring training. The Tigers have gotten off to horrible starts the last 2 Aprils. Joint baseball practices? He played the starters the first 2 years in the preseason and lost, so it's not like he's continuing the same thing he used to do. What he's doing is actually different from prior years. This is true, as we pointed out. The Lions start off the season 0-2. The doubts are going to set in as Campbell's starts have been bad. It's unfortunate the first 2 games are against really good teams. 1-1 would be a blessing. That's from Jim. I guess I disagree. Well, I will not look at 1-1 as a blessing. I will look at 1-1 as what is expected. And a blessing is if they open with Kansas City and Philly. Kansas City and Buffalo. They're going to be favored against Seattle. They should beat Seattle. And if they start 0-2, I'm not going to say it's okay to panic, but that's when you can go, okay, this isn't going to be easy. And it's not. I mean, it's nobody, if we think it's going to be easy, that's foolish. We've spent the better part of the last week talking about the rest of the division. and putting a little more respect on their name. So it's not going to be easy. Here's an interesting one. I worry about the psyche of Lions fans if we get off to an 0-2 start. That's fair. We're a vulnerable group. If the Lions have another slow start, Campbell should be squarely on the hot seat. That's from Donna Madison Heights. All right, well, what are we talking about here? What's a slow start? What do you deem as a slow start? Is 0-2 enough to be considered a slow start?
It's not a great start, but that's not hot seat.
No,
slow. 0-2. The problem is, you know what happens at 0-2 for any team, and you'll see this on all the national shows and on social media. Mm-hmm. It'll show you the percentages of teams that make the playoffs when they start 0-2. Yeah. It ain't the best.
No, it's not. Okay. Two things to get to. More from Dan Campbell. One player in particular said, hey, I'm having problems integrating here a little bit. And Campbell addressed it about him not playing in the preseason. And is this guy turning into a star? We'll get to that at 11:20. It's Carson Anderson, Gator Out Today, 97.1.
Brought to you by Applied Innovation. Day baseball at Comerica Park with a shot at taking the season series versus the Cubs on the line. They'll settle a winner today after splitting the first 2 games. Tarik Skubal ready to take the ball for the finale. He went 6 innings last time out. That's his longest outing since returning from injury. And Chicago will counter with righty Jameson Taillon, who struggled with a 5.56 ERA and a sub-500 record. Game time downtown set for 1:10 p.m. Dan Dickerson's call set right here on 97.1 The Ticket. Also, manager A.J. Hinch, he jumped on with Stoney and Jansen this morning on 97.1. Very happy that Spencer Torkelson is starting to break out and show what he can do in the month of August and still keep a level head. Got it. Yeah, with the success of Parker Meadows, by the way, in 2 games, Hinch says there's no decision on what other prospects may be brought up soon to get their first taste of the majors. Parker is back in the lineup for a 3rd straight game today, batting 6th and playing center field. Jake Rogers shaking off his injury from last night and set to catch Skubal and bat 9th. And prep for the Chiefs begins today, according to Dan Campbell. The Lions will have a calmer practice after the intensity of yesterday and shift player focus from themselves to Kansas City on September the 7th, the kickoff of the entire NFL season. At the Ticket Update Desk, I'm Chris Villar. For more, go to 97.1 The Ticket and Odyssey.com.
All right, is this guy going to be a star? We'll get to that today at 11:20. Open lines, 248-539-9797. Look, Dan Campbell spoke yesterday and got into his philosophy as to why some of these guys aren't going to play in games and talked about the intensity of practice. And yesterday was an intense one, man. I mean, the observers there said it was hitting. It was taking people to the ground. There were guys getting hurt, although nothing serious. And it seems to be the approach. They aren't televised. Some fans get to see it, but few fans get to see it. And so I think there's a bit of a hesitation to accept that there's a bit of buy-in. You have to buy in that they're doing whatever they need to do to get ready for the regular season. And, they're going to have to hit the ground running. Meanwhile, slow starts have been part of the Campbell era. Look, I don't think slow starts is an issue. I don't think it's like, hey, Dan Campbell teams get off to slow starts. Look what the roster was 2 years ago. It wasn't ready to win. Last year's roster wasn't really ready to win either, although they started to win late in the year. If they get off to a slow start this year, then maybe we have something. But one of the reporters brought up, and, again, you could tell the reporter's reminding a little bit and say, hey, is your philosophy going to work? One of them brought up to Dan Campbell that David Montgomery had mentioned that he was struggling a little bit in terms of just integrating into the offense, that it was a bit of a process. And they said, is that a guy that could use in-game reps? And here's what Dan Campbell said about it. There you go. Long season. He's trying to play the long game here. And we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, we've talked about it. There it is. That's Dan Campbell about his approach. It's a long season. And he's trying to get guys from beginning to the end. It's almost like I don't want to read too much into it, but did you get the sense that he's almost like, we may get off to a slow start? He's almost acknowledging it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But the season's longer than when Dan played. We're at 17 games now. You know, it's definitely longer than it's ever been. I think that this year with the expectations, and mind you, the previous slow starts, Ben Johnson was not starting the year as the offensive coordinator. And I think that's a huge difference. Now, you didn't have the talent clearly, but something was up with the coaching as well. They moved on from Anthony Lynn. They moved on from Aubrey Pleasant. Deuce Staley wasn't a problem, but he's left. Scotty Montgomery is here this year. And I think that with the confidence I have in Ben Johnson, I think everyone in Detroit has.
Yeah.
I think the slow start is something that, we don't want, but I don't expect either. And to me, by the way, 0-2 is not like a deal breaker. Now, we start like the same, as before. What was it? 0-6-1 or whatever the previous year before that was. Yeah, that's a problem. But 0-2 is not the end of the season. I know the stats aren't great for teams that make it in the playoffs that start 0-2, but actually I don't even expect them to be 0-2. I expect at minimum 1-1. I think 2-0 is a possibility.
248-539-9797. So, table set for that conversation if you want to go there. Let's get back to your open line calls. We go to Ken next on 97.1. Hi, Ken.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing good.
So last night I ended up at the Tigers game, just kind of spur of the moment thing, sat in the outfield.
Yep.
Abanya's second home run comes right to me. I dropped it. But I'd never seen this before. The Tigers' social media put me right on the page of me dropping it in slow motion. Man, it was just tough to see. I just thought it was kind of funny to mention to you guys.
Where can we see this? Is it Detroit? Is it Twitter?
It's Tigers' Instagram, like their official page. It's like his second home run, slow motion, right to me. All my buddies are chirping me today, laughing, like, how did you drop that, man? I'm like, it is what it is.
So, look, I have dropped multiple baseballs hit to me or thrown to me at games. And I could catch a ball. I could totally catch a ball.
Sure.
But I know, right? Nobody's going to believe that. Everybody's going to think, no, you suck. I can catch a ball. And I had a home run hit to me in Old Tiger Stadium. I was in the front row of the upper deck, and I hit my hands and dropped straight to the ground. Then one of the outfielder for Kansas City tried to pick it up and throw it back up to me, but I wasn't paying attention, and it landed in the lower deck beneath me. And I dropped one. I dropped a foul ball that was hit to me, and I dropped the ball that a player threw to me. I was a bit younger then. It can happen, man, and I swear to God I can catch a ball. I know everybody's going to think, no, you can't.
I know. I feel you, man. I feel you.
On a home run ball's coming in hot.
Oh, yeah. It was coming it was probably around 95, 100. Like, the ball was just buzzing.
No, go with 250. It was going 250 miles an hour. I mean.
Were you wearing a dark shirt?
Yeah, the blue shirt.
Yeah, I see you. Yeah, you dropped that, man. I see you. Come on, man. You had two hands, too. Were you going like a two-handed?
I didn't keep them together.
Is that what it was?
Football catch almost.
Yeah, it was like an over-the-shoulder kind of.
Yeah. So, So it was tough, but I just wanted to call and talk about it. It was a pretty cool experience, and yeah, now I'm on Instagram, and all my buddies are posting me on their stories like, nice hands, feet. Well, how'd you drop that? Like,
Yep. I remember I have a friend who went to a Tiger game with a bunch of people, and in his group, a foul ball got hit to him. And he reached up to catch it, hit him in the hands, bounced out of his hands. He's a good athlete too, Hoffman. And Gator barely knows Hoffman. Barely knows him. He's met him before, barely knows him. But they put the picture of Hoffman, that actually made like Det News or Freep, him with his hands in the air and the ball bouncing out. And we talked about it on the air. And then the next time Gator saw Hoffman, one of the first, they barely knew each other. And Gator just looks at him and says, nice catch, a-hole. And I'm like, whoa, aggressive.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that to this guy, but he definitely dropped it. This was if I'm in a fantasy league with him, this is my avatar. This is my profile pic.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's him. I mean, he's got two hands out to the side, right through his hands, he said. So,
and it's on the Tigers Instagram page.
Well, I just went to Yeah, I searched up a story or a video, any video of Ibanez' second home
So
run.
maybe this was the first home run I looked at. I was on their website, and I think it must have been his first home. No, it's his second home run. Yeah, I can't see. I'm looking at the highlight right now. Is this the one that ended up with a girl that had like a white tank top on? She ended up with it. Yeah, I see my man now reaching over and missed it. Oh, that's funny. Whoops. All right, is this guy going to be a star? Are you buying in? We'll get to that today at 11:20 here on Carson Anderson. 97.1. Hey, Hall Financial, the lender that saved Michigan residents millions, is reinventing home lending with their exclusive no-fee home loan. Everybody hates fees. Here's a way to avoid them. Hall Financial is proud to announce Michigan's first no-fee home loan, exclusive to Hall Financial clients. Even better, with the no-fee loan, you stay locked into the no-fee program, ensuring you don't pay fees to Hall Financial when it's time to refi years from now. If you aren't working with Hall Financial on your home loan, you're overpaying. The no-fee loan applies to both new purchases and refis. Call Hall Financial right now to learn more about the no-fee home loan option. 866-CALL-HALL or chat with them online at callhallfirst.com. It's callhallfirst.com. Did you ever catch a ball at a game, Kang?
The closest I came to was spring training when we used to go down there. Remember, you guys sent me down there?
We sent you. Kang, he was producing the show. We were in Lakeland. The game's underway. We're still on the air. It wasn't a game.
No, it wasn't even game underway. It was batting practice.
Batting practice. You're right. I'm sorry. And we sent you out to the left field berm to try and catch a ball.
Yeah, I believe it was Aaron Judge. Either him or Giancarlo Stanton. I couldn't remember. It was definitely one of those two. And we're like, hey, let's just see if you can get one. So I went out to the berm, and I immediately got a ball.
Yep.
But it hit the ground, and I went over and picked it up.
Yep. He skillfully picked it up off the grass. But look.
That thing came in hot.
When I see somebody like reach up with one hand and catch a ball, I'm always like, first of all, it stings. It was funny. We were playing a game with coach my little guy's baseball team, 16-year-olds, and a ball gets hit foul down the left field line, and we're in the third base dugout, and somebody's got to go retrieve it. And if it's a kid, they got to put a helmet on. So sometimes as a coach, I'm sitting on a bucket at the end of the dugout, and I just run down and get it. So I turn and I'm running down the left field line, and I'm out by the bullpens, 3/4 of the way to the fence, and someone hits a screamer, foul, right towards me. And I'm like, well, I gotta catch this. And I did, thankfully, because, the boys are watching. So I had to catch it. And I did. And then it's not like it tickles. It was coming in hot. But a home run at a major league stadium. It isn't easy, and now all the guys are going to say, yes, it is, Doug. You just suck. But
I don't think it's easy. I've always wanted to. I've never gotten a foul ball or home run ball at a game.
Mm-hmm.
That was the closest. It was BP, and I picked it up. Like I said, but it left a little mark in the grass for sure. It was like a meteor, man. I was like, you don't realize it until you actually see it coming like, hey, this is kind of coming in quick.
Yep.
I've always wanted to do the one-handed, like with a beer or a baby in the other hand.
I mean, the people that pull that off, it's really incredible hand-eye, and that is impressive. It is very impressive. Okay. So we talked a little bit about Dan Campbell's approach to the preseason, which included a intense practice yesterday. It was offense versus defense. It was 2 hours. It was live tackling to the ground. Some guys got banged up. Kirby Joseph, Derek Barnes, Levi Onwuzurike, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, according to a story on MLive, all received medical attention. Appeared to be minor injuries, but it was also described as the most violent practice of the summer. But I want to read this. Again, this is from MLive. No one dominated more than, you guessed it, Brian Branch. The rookie defensive back has been one of the stars of the summer and was, once again, among the most impactful players on the field for Detroit. There was one 2-play sequence where he ran from one hash to the other to make a diving tackle on third down, then turned around on the very next play and picked off a Jared Goff pass for Khalif Raymond downfield. Branch had at least 3 tackles for loss overall on the day and just might break camp as the team's interception leader. There's no official accounting for that, but if there's someone who's picked off more passes, well, it's probably C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And even the reigning NFL interception leader might not have more takeaways than the second-round pick out of Alabama. And then they've got some quotes, including Dan Campbell saying he's a rookie, but he's taking off right now. And the story goes on to say, so much so, the Lions have made some major changes to get the second-round pick in the starting lineup. Gardner-Johnson was signed to primarily play in the slot, Branch's position, but has since moved to safety. That has sent Tracy Walker to the bench. If you know anything about how good Walker's been, then you understand just how good Branch must already be. This is now from Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press. I've written this a handful of times in camp already, but Branch is a stud. He's always around the ball. He's a good blitzer, and he brings the wood when he hits. On the final series, Branch came flying into the backfield and smashed Gibbs for a short loss on a play before his pick. Branch played slot corner with the first-team defense Tuesday and appears to have that job locked up heading into the regular season. I think he'll have a Budda Baker-like impact on the Lions secondary, and the only thing that prevents him from being a really good player in the NFL for a long time is injuries, a la Bob Sanders. Sometimes I say tap the brakes. Sometimes I feel like, okay, show me. Not this time. I'm fully bought in. And a lot of it has to do with a strong belief that he was a first-round talent before all this. And this just feels like it confirms it. It just feels like it confirms it. And when you are moving veterans around to accommodate a rookie, that really speaks volumes to the impact that you are believed to be making. I'm buying in.
I don't know how you can't. There's no way this guy doesn't see the field, if not starting right away week one. There's just too much has been written, too much has been seen, too much has been praised. Brian Branch is going to be, I think, your week one nickelback. You play 5 defensive backs a lot now. The lines, they have that front where they only play 2 linebackers. I think Tracy Walker starts the season on the bench. I think it's Kirby Joseph, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and Brian Branch.
Yep. And, I think back, and we've talked all the times about the Seahawks. You look at teams that you respect, and you try and mimic how they do it. And the Seattle Seahawks are a team that I think is a great example of how it can be done, because they didn't get everything right and still built a Super Bowl team because they got enough right. And that's the key here. That's the key here. It's an unrealistic, like the people call up, they hate this draft pick or hate that draft pick. That's okay. Keep in mind that there are bad draft picks on good teams. And the Seahawks, I often cite the big draft mistake, big free agent mistake, big trade mistake. Big draft mistake was Aaron Curry. Big free agent mistake was Matt Flynn. Big trade mistake was Percy Harvin. And yet they went out, overcame all that. And did they get lucky? I mean, a little bit. Cam Chancellor in the 5th round, if you knew he was going to be that good, you never would have waited to the 5th round, right? That was a huge, huge addition for them. Richard Sherman, wasn't he a 6th-round pick? So they added elite players in the secondary with mid to late round picks. This isn't even a mid to late round pick. This is a 2nd-round pick of a guy who was expected to go in the 1st round. I guess this is the equivalent of like an Earl Thomas in the 2nd round. So, look, I mean, I find this to be highly encouraging.
And we thought that he might have the hardest path to playing time because of the loaded secondary, the veterans ahead of him. But his play's been too damn good to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to see the field a ton. I believe he's going to start personally, and he might make the biggest impact out of the first 4 players taken, which is saying incredibly a lot because Jahmyr Gibbs we expected to play a lot, right? Jack Campbell we expected to play a lot. Sam Laporta might have been just handed the starting tight end position.
Might have been.
He doesn't even play in the last preseason game.
So, look, I think the beat writers do a great job, and I tend to, believe a lot of what they say. At no point did I didn't want to overreact to the one play he made on Cole Beasley in the first preseason game, but you could see the closing speed there. He was shot out of a cannon. And we'd read that they were shifting around to get him more reps. But in yesterday's most physical practice, he was up to the task. So, I mean, that you hit the nail on the head. This was the rookie that we we did say he's got the biggest roadblock, and I still think that was true. But he's been that good. He's been that good. So, Brian Branch, I'm buying in. 248-539-9797. More of your phone calls and feedback coming up. Talk a little Tigers as well as we get you set for Tiger baseball this afternoon. Look, weird thing is the forecast I look at, it doesn't look like it's going to rain. I look outside. It looks like it's going to storm. So weather permitting, there'll be a Tiger game this afternoon. Straight ahead, though, I want to get to a college football note. You tell me if this sounds fair or unfair in the world of NIL. We'll explain at 11:32 here on 97.1 The Ticket.
You're going to explain to these people what the hell's going on in Ann Arbor. I can't make sense of it.
You think I have all the answers to this?
It's your cult.
Okay.
It's Emgo Costa.
Here it is.
Excuse me, I have to get a screwdriver and fix them.
You go ahead and do that. For people who may have heard, and for those who have not, Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines have, that too, self-imposed suspension, but only 3 games. The deal that fell through was 4 games. Fell through because the NCAA felt like 4 games wasn't enough. So what does Michigan do? They turn around and say only 3. Do they think that's going to be sufficient? Am I missing something with this?
Yeah, you're missing. Why would you self-impose in the first place? History has already shown you self-imposing doesn't really matter. Why would you self-impose when you put a deal before them that you would not agree to? The Committee on Infractions rejected your deal at 4.
Mm-hmm.
But you think 3 is doing something?
So what are we missing?
I don't know.
I know you don't like getting inside the head of the Michigan Brain Trust.
Doug Karsch, Scott Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. 248-539-9797. Get to some Tiger stuff a little bit later on. Tigers take on the Cubs. Final game of series. A.J. Hinch was very interesting this morning, and we'll play some of the best of what he told the morning show crew. All right, so we have, collectively as sports fans, we have been through one of the most rapid transformations in a sport we have ever seen. College football, you go back 5 years and talk about things like players getting paid, immediate transfers, a Big Ten game between USC and Michigan or USC and Michigan State, Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten. I mean, it's been insane. The Pac-12 is gone. I mean, It's been crazy. College football playoffs expanded. I don't know that anything in sports has evolved or devolved, however you look at it, I guess, as rapidly. The changes in college football have been rapid, and there are concerns. But I've seen through the years, as it's my favorite sport to watch and consume. I still show up on Saturdays as enthusiastic as ever. You know, I think this whole thing needs to settle down, and we'll figure out what makes the most sense. A lot of smart people are in charge, believe it or not. But you know, the money is driving everything. But that's kind of what drives everything in the real world anymore. And I think there was a time in my life where, you know, decisions were made motivated by money, but also ethics and what is right and what is fair. And now I just think it's all about money. It's just everything, it seems like, in this world is determined by money. But this is new in the world of NIL, and I heard this first listening to Dan Wetzel's podcast. State of Missouri, the Missouri governor, Mike Pearson, has signed an NIL bill in that state that allows high school athletes to make money off their name, image, and likeness. So a high school athlete can negotiate and strike an NIL deal, again, while they're still in high school. But there's a catch. You can only collect on that deal. You can sign the deal in high school, but you can only start collecting money on the deal if you sign a letter of intent with a public university in Missouri. That law is taking effect now. So if you're a kid from St. Louis, Missouri, and you're being recruited by, you know, the Big Ten schools, you know, Illinois or Iowa, I'm just trying to think local, and you're being recruited by the University of Missouri, and you sign an NIL deal while you're still in high school, and you sign a letter of intent with Missouri, you can collect, based on their state law, on that money by staying in state. If you sign a letter of intent with Illinois or Iowa, you can't collect. Again, based on their state law, I guess until you're either, I don't know if you're a graduate or a student athlete, but you can't collect as soon. And the first thought on this is, well, that's BS. And then I heard Wetzel, who's very smart, point out, is this any different than tax incentives that state governments give to companies to build in their states? Right? I mean, that happens. You get a tax break, so you move your headquarters to the state of Michigan. Now, there's financial incentives by state governments to stay in state, to bring business to the state. This is a financial incentive by a state government to help out the state universities, the public universities in the state when it comes to athletics. So it's not apples to apples, but there are some similarities. Because when I first heard this, I thought this is the problem with NIL. But it's not what Missouri has done necessarily. It's that now I want the state of Michigan to do it. Right? I mean, it's one of the challenges, I guess, if you will, with NIL is you want to be on the same playing field. And Missouri just got a massive commitment. One of the best players in the country who's from the state of Missouri. And so, you know, did this play a role? Well, the player didn't cite it. But bottom line here is it's just the evolving and changing challenges of a new world order in college football. So there you go.
I got no problem with it. Isn't there? There's already incentives for whether you're an athlete or not to stay in state, isn't it? It's just cheaper, out of state tuition, things like that.
Well, if you're a student athlete, if you're on scholarship, it doesn't matter.
No, but I'm talking about for kids that aren't.
Well, that's true. Yep.
So
this is
make it more incentive for every athlete, not athlete. I think this is particular with athletes, of course, but I'm saying if you're not an athlete, it's cheaper to stay in state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're an athlete, you get some money now too, and on top of scholarships or athletic scholarships and things like that.
I mean, when I first heard it, I'm like, this makes me uncomfortable. But if you start pointing out all the other advantages that state governments give to help out in state, this is just another example of it. And quite frankly, it's one that many of us care about. I mean, we could talk about, tariffs and tax breaks, but at the end of the day, a lot of people listening to the station really care about sports, so why shouldn't our state do this? 248-539-9797. Let's get to your phone calls. Andy, you're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hi, Andy.
Yeah, hi, Doug. How you doing?
What's up?
To stop a kid from going to Missouri, say he's really, really good, could go anywhere in the country, but he takes that NIL money, goes to Missouri, plays his first year, and then jumps in the portal?
Nothing's to stop. I mean, look, it's an incentive to get you to sign with Missouri, but they can't make you stay at Missouri, right? I mean, and here's what you got to keep in mind. You can't sign a letter of intent till December of your senior year. So that high school athlete gets to collect for basically 9 months more if you stay at a public institution than a high school athlete that signs out of state.
Well, yeah, I think Michigan should do it too. I mean, we've got some quality athletes here that, we could keep in state, but I mean, if they, and a good reason to stay at the schools too, because there's good programs. We've got good football, we've got good basketball. I mean, so a state like Michigan would benefit really a lot, but a state like Missouri, their guys are going to play at Missouri for a year and they're going to blow out of there.
Yeah, I mean, they might, but I guess that's always the risk. I feel like these commitments are, if they follow through on the commitment, they're at best 1 year. Because it's just the way it is anymore, and I can't. I want to be able to accept it because I love the sport. But we'll find out, Andy. I mean, how do you feel about it? Are you cool with it?
Hey, I'm cool with it. I wish I'd have done that when I was in high school. Maybe I could have got some money. And Branch is a stud. I looked up a bunch of highlights from him at Alabama because I'd never really watched Alabama football. He is just a stud. He's going to be a star in the NFL. He's going to be great.
I don't know that. I mean, I guess a year ago, the star of training camp, you go back, was Malcolm Rodriguez, and 1 year later, they might have drafted over him, and people are ready to see the rookie play. And I'm not pushing anybody out. I'm the biggest Jack Campbell fan there is. But hey, man, let the best man win the job. And if Malcolm Rodriguez is better than Jack Campbell and starts instead of him, or Derek Barnes is better than Jack Campbell, great. It just means they have great depth. I mean, I admit I kind of hope that Jack Campbell's good enough to start from day one. Yes, because it kind of justifies the position I took and it justifies the pick. But, I guess I feel like there's more hype about Brian Branch this year than there was about Malcolm Rodriguez last year.
Oh, absolutely. And you feel like it's because he's taking it. And Malcolm Rodriguez, not that he didn't take the starting position, but it was there to be, taken, right? No one was stepping up. I mean, they were on Hard Knocks last year, so we got a little behind the scenes look at the linebackers coach Shepard talking to him, hey, don't make me start this rookie.
Right.
Somebody do something, right?
Yep.
And they started the rookie. Now, this year, they weren't on Hard Knocks, but we know they got a bunch of guys in the secondary. Tracy Walker coming back from injury. Kirby Joseph stepping up from a huge last year. Big free agent signing, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Bringing Sutton. They got the guys that they did bring back, and Jerry Jacobs. And Chase Lucas and the other guys. But Brian Branch continually stands out on his own.
Yep.
So that's the difference, I think, between Rodrigo last year and Branch this year.
Well, it's certainly exciting. 248-539-9797. Back to your open line calls. Antonio is next here on 97.1. What's up, Antonio?
What's up, Karsh?
How you doing, sir?
Hey, man, I'm not worried about Kansas City. There's nobody on their defense who scares me. The defensive backs, I'm not worried about them. I don't know if any all-pro linebackers they have. And the one Pro Bowler they do have is not in camp. And if he come back tomorrow, he's not going to be in shape for our offensive line. That happens to be our strength. So as we moving methodically up and down the field, Pat Mahomes will be on the sideline.
So look, and the Pro Bowl, the All Pro player you're talking about is Chris Jones, and yeah, he might not play in that game, and that would be.
They don't have a chance. They don't. Our offensive line. We're. It's not about being explosive that day. It's about being methodical. Long drives. Pat Mahomes on the sideline, and there's nothing that they could do to stop us without Chris Jones. I'm not worried about George Karlaftis. No Frank Clark. I'm not worried about Kansas City's defense at all.
I love your confidence. Do I think you're a tad bit overconfident? Yes. That's okay. That's okay.
My man's you should be worried because here's the thing. Does the Eagles, do they have a good offensive line, Doug?
Yes.
Okay. I believe Patrick Mahomes actually wasn't even on the field as much as he was for the Super Bowl. They kept him off the field.
Yep.
They had a great offensive line.
Yep.
Who won the game?
Kansas City won the game.
They're a good team, man.
Right.
And they don't have, they might not have Chris Jones. Doesn't look likely. And they don't have Frank Clark.
And that's big. I having Chris Jones, don't be fooled. That's big.
Yeah. That's huge. That's a great thing for the Lions. But I don't think it's, they don't have Chris Jones. Just, pencil it in. Lions win by 10.
Yep. He's not worried. 248-539-9797. Phone calls, feedback. Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, need a refreshing cocktail with a vodka that has unparalleled purity and unmistakable taste? Stoli Vodka, it's the right choice. Whether you're mixing up classic cocktails or savoring Stoli on the rocks, Stoli Vodka delivers an experience like no other. So if you're in a mood for a premium vodka that stands above the rest, Stoli Vodka is the one for you. Make your moments memorable, raise your glass, and let the spirit of Stoli ignite your senses. Remember, folks, life is all about embracing the extraordinary, and Stoli Vodka is here to elevate your every celebration. Grab a bottle today and experience a spirit that has captivated the world for generations. Stoli Vodka, it's the taste of excellence. Cheers. Got a quick follow-up here. So yesterday I told you how my daughter is daughter's moving into her dorm today, and we're kind of in a bit of a vulnerable place as parents. It's not easy.
But you've done this before.
We have done it before.
But not with the daughter before.
Yeah, with the daughter, it's been a little bit different. And I'm kind of been caught off guard by that fact.
I guess that just means you love her more than the other one.
So, yeah, I don't want to draw that conclusion. I guess it's just different saying goodbye to your little girl. And so she moves into the dorms today, and we'll have one kid left in the house. And it feels like the full court press has been put on to get this kid a dog. And I love him, and he's a great kid, but I don't want a dog. And I brought it up in the air yesterday. And they're sending videos and constantly saying, we should get AJ a dog. And I'm just like, I don't want to get him a dog. I have nothing against dogs. I just don't want to be a dog owner. And he's only in the house for basically 3 more years roughly. And then he's off to college. And then guess what I have? A dog that I didn't want in the first place. So we talked about it yesterday, and after talking to listeners, and even Gator called during a commercial break, and I said hello, and he goes, "What are you, nuts?"
Gator, a dog owner.
Yeah.
Told you.
Don't get a dog. But he knows me, and he knows.
That's great.
Just randomly this morning at 9:45, I get a text from my son. Dad would love a dog.
Is this a family thread or just?
It's just him and my wife and I.
Okay.
So the three of us, he just texts, Dad would love a dog. And the thing is, if we get a dog, I imagine I will love that dog.
Oh, I said this yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't want a dog either, but I imagine as well. We get a dog into my house, I'm going to love that dog.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the point.
Part of it is being a parent is a ton of effort. And it's worth it. It's incredibly rewarding, but it's a lot of work and it changes your life. And there's a little bit of a break. I mean, things are settling down a little bit for us, but I'm holding strong. We are not getting a dog.
Hold strong.
I know. I'm more worried about you because your kids are younger.
Yes.
And your daughter at this point completely owns you, and she keeps asking, and you admit every time she asks, it moves the needle a little bit.
Barely, but yes, a little.
It does move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, look, I think if people want dogs, it's great to take rescue dogs and go to the Humane Society. And I've done fundraisers with the Humane Society, and I'm not anti-dog. I just think I just don't want to be a dog owner. And so... But that's an example of the full court press. Just randomly, Dad would love a dog. Now, I should text him back and say, really? You think so? And see what he says.
Listen, you got to stand strong and hold strong, but it's going to be a lot easier if your wife is with you.
Yep.
Now, if you're the last man standing, that's going to be a lot tougher. You need her on your side together.
She has been.
Okay.
But she's in a more vulnerable place right now than I am. And just in terms of, you can burst out in tears at any moment because your little girl's moving out of the house, right? Last night I started running down stuff. Do you need help with this? Anything you want to talk about? Anything like that? And all of a sudden, my daughter started crying. I'm like, no.
What?
No,
right? Man.
I'm like, I'm not even convinced you like me, but
you guys are all in your feelings over at the Karsch household.
It's really, it's a powder keg.
It's okay, man. You know what? It's because you guys, she cares, you care. It's a place of love. But don't get a dog. Don't get a dog.
So his text, Dad would love a dog. I text him back, really? You think so? And he texts back immediately, yes, give it a try. Uncle Mike and Aunt Sa did it on a trial basis. Why don't we try it like that?
No, there's no trial basis, man. Once that dog enters your home, that's it.
Can you imagine how much worse it would be for me to say after like 3 weeks, we're getting rid of the dog?
Exactly. There's no turning back once you do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
No.
And I say this because I know you personally don't want to own a dog, which all the responsibilities come with it. Because you know this as well as I do. You're going to be taking care of that dog more than
taking
anybody.
Care of that dog, and I don't know that anything makes a worse dog owner than somebody who doesn't want to own a dog. All right, anyway, so that's the update. Back to the feedback coming in. First, regarding Missouri's NIL law, which will allow high school athletes to sign NIL deals and collect immediately if they sign with a public university in the state of Missouri. It's an incentive to stay in state. From an unnamed texter, Ohio looked into getting NIL for high school students last year, but Ohio didn't want to start in high school yet. I say in 5 years, some states will have NIL for high school students. I can hear Doug screaming if that ever happens. Ha ha. So I'm trying not to scream about anything because, and all of you out there are going to go through this. You're going to get to a point in your life where there is rapid change in something and you are going to push back. You are going to bristle. You are not going to like it and not want to accept it. And everybody will they won't argue with you. They'll just say, oh, you're just an old man. You don't like change. That's not really an argument against. It's just painting somebody with a stereotypical brush. But I don't want to be an old man that doesn't like change. I don't want to be sitting around with my rotary dial phone. So I am trying to be accepting of new things. It doesn't mean it's comfortable. And if there's NIL for high school students, I guess so be it. But at some point, right? At some point, it may impact my interest in what I'm watching. It may. Another one here. We can't currently keep our top high school athletes in school in Michigan thanks to the MHSAA signed high school basketball coach. These kind of texts, and we get stuff like this all the time, I wish you would explain why. Why? What is the MHSAA doing? This is a meaningless claim unless you can back it up. So whoever you are, if you could text again and explain why, I'd like to know why. Next text. I feel like this Missouri law may help the smaller universities retain athletes versus the big one. Maybe. I mean, look, there's a lot more student athletes that are going to end up at D2s and D3s than there are D1s. There's just more of them. I mean, you look at what do we have in our state as far as Division I football programs. We got Michigan, Michigan State, and the 3 directionals, right? And then all the D2s and D3s, there's way more. So there'll be more student athletes that can take advantage of it. And those smaller schools don't have the budget and don't as frequently recruit out of state the way the big schools do. So, yeah, you're probably right. 248-539-9797. All right, if you missed what Dan Campbell said at the beginning of the show about starters playing, we'll replay it for you at 12:02. Later, we'll talk some Tigers. Last night, interesting win over the Cubs with a tall, lanky outside wide receiver now ranging around there in center field in the person of Parker Meadows. Tigers supposed to play Cubs today at 1:10. We'll see. Tarp's on the field. Do we have an update on that, Kang?
No, not yet.
All right, well, we'll keep the people in the loop.
Hope it looks better down there than it does here.
It doesn't look great here. It's Carson Anderson, 97.1 The Ticket. All right, exciting times in Detroit as we get ready for a coming football season. Tigers playing some interesting baseball. Lots going on and lots to talk about. Here on 97.1 The Ticket, scheduled Tiger 110 start against the Chicago Cubs. No word yet if there's going to be a delay. Rain in some areas of Metro Detroit. We shall see, but keep it locked in to 97.1 The Ticket, and they have been interesting of late. With Torkelson breaking out, Kerry Carpenter breaking out, and now Parker Meadows called up, and the three of them looking to join Riley Green and establish themselves as young stars and regulars in this Detroit Tiger lineup. Long way to go with some of them, but still encouraging the last month or so, maybe a little bit longer with that with Torque. But we'll get to that coming up a little bit later on this hour. In the meantime, Lions, yesterday was the day that they really got after it in practice, and it sounds like yesterday's intense, violent practice was serving as the equivalent of a preseason game in Dan Campbell's mind. Here's what he said before the practice yesterday that we were responding to earlier in the show. Okay, that's about playing time with the starters. It's going to look very much like the first two games, but it's going to depend on how today and tomorrow go. Look, yesterday, again, they got after it offense versus defense. One of the beat writers described it as the most violent practice of the summer. And, I mean, I think it was a success. And so now Dan Campbell, they're probably not going to play guys this week. And you know, it's about getting ready for the full season, maybe, just not getting ready for the opener. Some people think it's a mistake. Dan Campbell's seasons have started 0-10-1 and 1-6. They went 0-10-1 in 2021, and they went 1-6 in 2022. So I think it's Jim Costa who likes to do thing, not a thing. Is this a thing? Is this something or nothing? And I don't think it's anything, because I think if you look at the roster, those rosters weren't ready to win big. Especially the 2021 roster. It was not a surprise that they got off to a slow start. They were breaking it down to build it back up. And that's what they've been doing. Now, if they get off to a slow start this year, and I'm not talking about 0-1, that's not a slow start. Hell, I don't even think 0-2 is a slow start. 0-2 would be disappointing. I expect them to win the second game. But you're allowed, good teams can lose a game that they're supposed to win, even a couple of games that they're supposed to win. It's when you start losing 2 and 3 of those in a row, that might look like a slow start to me. Because what's their third game? Their third game's Atlanta. Their fourth game's Green Bay. 1-3 or 0-4, that's a slow start. 0-2 to me is not enough to be a slow start. But anyway, I mean, in a soundbite we played a little bit later on, he was discussing how, you know, they're preparing for the entire season, and the seasons are long. So we'll see. We'll see if it pays dividends. In the meantime, so what does Friday's game mean? Friday's game at Carolina. Well, he admitted, Dan Campbell did, that the intensity for the final roster spots get cranked up for those guys on the roster bubble. Okay, so we've watched it. We've watched it through a couple preseason games, and it feels like the games are used for the roster depth and bubble players that might get cut. In the meantime, by the way, just for the record, he did play starters a lot more last year in the preseason. Jared Goff played in the first game. Amon-Ra played in a couple games. Khalif Raymond played in games. DeAndre Swift played in games. He's pared it back even more this year, so he's not doing the same thing. He's actually changing it up. Now, they've also done 2 rounds of joint practices, which should not be dismissed. All right, speaking of the roster bubble, this kind of caught me off guard. And again, I have a lot of respect for the beat writers that cover this team. I think we have a pretty good crew. And I read a lot of what they have to say. There was one thing that caught me off guard a little bit. And I didn't expect to see this name talked about as a potential roster cut. But in discussing the defensive line, Kyle Meinke on his MLive roster projection said one name to watch heading into cuts is James Houston. Just finished second among all rookies in sacks last season, but he struggled to take a step forward in camp this offseason. He's repped mostly with the deep reserves, but gave his roster chances a big boost by blowing up Jacksonville for 4 tackles for loss and 1 sack. Then again, he played 36 snaps in the final 3 quarters of that game, which is rarely a good sign. There's no way, right? There's no way James Houston gets cut. And to be fair here, Kyle Meinke includes him in the in crowd, like the ones that are in and not ones that are out. Like on the defensive line, he's got James Houston is the last name listed. And then out, Christian Covington, Julian Okwara, Corey Durden, and Chris Smith. But is James Houston repping with guys that are fighting for roster spots? He might be. Here's the thing about James Houston. I feel like his impact in what he did last year is kind of being actually undervalued. People want James Houston to morph into a 3-down edge guy, and that would be great. But let's just say he doesn't. If that doesn't happen, he's still got a spot on this team. What he does do and what he did a year ago was amongst the most valuable things you can do on defense. He got into the backfield and pressured the quarterback. I think it was 87. Was it 87 pass rushes and 7.5 sacks? Now, he's got to develop a repertoire of moves. You can't just be a one-trick pony. I'm going to beat you off the edge and turn the corner and get to the quarterback. Although he's really good at it, eventually teams will adjust. But if he doesn't become a 3-down edge rusher and just becomes a pass rush specialist as a 6th rounder, I'll take it. It's already swinging above his weight, right? I mean, you're talking about a 6th rounder. It was 87 pass rushes last year and 8 sacks. Give him a whole season.
Well, you kind of said it though, Doug. Is he just a pass rush specialist? Is this team too deep there where they can keep only a specialist on the team? He's working with the linebackers because they're loaded at defensive end. But really where he excels is defensive end, or at least a linebacker that rushes the quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. The linebacking room apparently is loaded. Derek Barnes has stepped up. Anzalone's already locked in at that starting position. Then you got Rodriguez and Campbell fighting for the other spot as well. Jalen Reeves-Maben is a special teamer who's going to make the team because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Where does this leave James Houston? I almost feel like someone has to get traded or moved before him to make this team.
And it might be Julian Okwara.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a big preseason. I could see how teams would like the fact that he's got 5 TFLs so far.
But if they don't trade him, because they got Charles Harris and Hutchinson probably starting, right? We know Hutch is starting. I'm guessing Harris is going to be other. I mean, they re-signed Kaminsky. He's not going to get cut.
No.
Pascal's a guy they drafted in love. They knew he was hurt when they drafted him, so they're going to give him some time. And that leaves the Okwaras and James Houston.
Yeah.
And is James Houston, was last year just a flash in the pan? Is he just not good enough? If he can't play 3 downs, do we have a spot for him? There's a lot of questions here. Would I be surprised if he got cut? Yes. But I wouldn't be completely floored.
Oh, I would be.
I know you would. I think I mentioned it a week ago before the show started.
You actually did, and I'm like,
and you're like, ah.
That would, to me, be a full-blown
whoa, right? The thing about Houston is, is it just results? And they're like, how did he get these results? They speak for themselves, but maybe it's something where he can be figured out. I don't know. He had a good game last week. That's preseason, but
yes, he did.
When you're playing a lot of snaps, does that mean you're playing for your job as well?
A little bit, unless your team is so incredibly deep and they like, hey, we can rep you a ton because you getting hurt isn't nearly as crippling as it would have been a year ago because we've got more depth. You don't want people to get hurt. You're not putting them in harm's way intentionally, but.
Is this a season where, remember Marinelli kept like 100 defensive linemen?
He kept, I think it was 11.
I think it was a little short of 100.
It was, but it was
a lot.
It was a lot of defensive linemen.
Maybe they do that.
248-539-9797. Phone calls, feedback. Tiger baseball scheduled for 1:10. You're on 97.1 The Ticket. Hey, it's hump day. Cure your midweek blues with bourbon and brews at Twin Peaks. Your favorite Twin Peaks girls are dressed to impress. The finest black lingerie ready to serve you up right this week. They're featuring the American bourbons from 5 to 7. The Twin Peaks girls are serving up samples of your favorites like Redemption Rye, Whistle Pig, and Bullet. You can even sample Twin Peaks' awesome High West Punch. Pairs great with the in-house hand-cut New York strip steak, served with the scratch-made garlic mashed potatoes and fresh-cut broccoli. It's a perfect combo. Food there is great. I drove past the Twin Peaks the other day at 7 a.m. in a parking lot. There were a bunch of cars, and I thought, what, are they open already? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. They got a crew in there early in the morning preparing the food fresh each and every day. It's one of the reasons why it's so good. If you're a fan of Twin Peaks, sign up for the E-Club and stay up to date on all things Twin Peaks and score free stuff. Signing up is easy. Just visit twinpeaksrestaurant.com/peaks-club to get started today. And to find a location nearest you, go to twinpeaksrestaurant.com. I don't think one Lion gets enough love. I think it's clear that the organization loves this guy. I think there's plenty to support that the organization loves this guy. Dan Campbell, Lions head coach, talking about his Friday's game, the intensity, guys battling for roster spots. That was yesterday before practice, which was an intense practice by all accounts from all the witnesses and the reporters and the observers who were there, and multiple observers saying that Brian Branch is just a stud. And they are not. I'm shocked at how they are not holding back on their praise of this guy and predicting big things for the rookie out of Alabama. In the meantime, regarding slow starts, sacks are the barometer. If the Lions start 0-2 but have 6 or more sacks, I'm feeling Super Bowl. If they start 2-0 with 2 sacks, it's going to be a long season. It's from an unnamed texter. I mean, yeah, the idea of getting after the quarterback's a big deal. And, you know, there's certain things in this league. I mean, it starts with being able to throw the ball and defend the pass. And if you can protect the quarterback or rush the quarterback, it helps. Troy and Dexter says Dan Campbell's a former player. As a player, I think he has firsthand experience on how to best prepare for the season. Yeah, maybe, but things have changed. Like things have changed. Attrition's a bigger part of the game. And the preseason has gone from 4 games to 3. And there's been a proliferation of joint practices, which clearly have become a bigger deal in the last few years. And I mean, the Lions had 2 rounds of them this year with 2 different teams. Regarding James Houston, Jamie in Ann Arbor says, I don't think James Houston is even close to being cut. I think he played more because he's been given more linebacker duties and they wanted to see those. They know his pass rush skills. Yeah, I stated before I read what Kyle Meinke wrote in his MLive roster projection, I think these guys are really good, the beat writers. They're not like hot take, throw stuff out there guys. But this one caught me off guard a little bit, you know, when he wrote, keep your eye on Houston. No, you cannot cut Houston based off of last season. You can't let that go. Every team would need that and dream of it. I 100% believe the Lions are playing him so much in the preseason just to see if he could be more than a third down specialist. They know his value, and they're looking to see if there's more upside to work with. I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense. But you know, when you start doing the numbers game, and you see multiple guys that project the 53-man roster, and Julian Okwara isn't on it, and to the eyes of the fans that don't get to see, some of you have gotten to see the practices, but he's looked great in the preseason. He's looked great. But when you get better, some guys who look great and make some plays in August don't make your roster come September. Okay, thank you to this person. We were talking about Missouri's NIL law that is going into effect that is really interesting. You can sign a name, image, and likeness deal as a high school athlete, but you can't collect on it until you're in college unless you sign a national letter of intent with a in-state school. So you sign that national letter of intent in December, you can start making money while you're still in high school with a name, image, and likeness deal. If you sign a national letter of intent with a non-public university in Missouri or out-of-state university, you can't collect until you're gone. So they're incentivizing you to stay in state. We got a text from one listener. We can't currently keep our top high school athletes in Michigan thanks to the MHSAA, signed high school basketball coach. And I said, okay, that's a strong statement. Please explain why. He got back to us. Multiple reasons. The MHSAA runs elite talent in the state. These were true a decade ago when I was in high school. Not positive of all these still exist. One, You can't compete on a national scale. My high school baseball team would go to Florida for spring training and couldn't play Florida schools who we would have beat. We can only play against ourselves. 2, if you're elite at football and play in the Under Armour All-American game, for example, the MHSAA doesn't allow you to compete in any other sport that year, like basketball or track. Basically, you're punished for being elite and promoting yourself and your state in the National All-Star Game. Well, there's 2 things. One is that baseball rule was true up until this year. I know that because I had boys who played high school baseball. When my oldest went down to Florida as part of their spring training trip, they could only scrimmage amongst themselves. This year, my youngest went to Florida, and they played 2 games against other schools. However, they were both against schools from the state of Michigan. It's like Northville and Plymouth-Salem. So that has changed. I don't know if any of the rest of it has changed. So, but if it's true that if you go to one of the high school all-star football games, which are typically in December or January, and it makes you ineligible for winter sports or spring sports, that kind of sucks. But maybe they should change their thinking, and they have changed their thinking when it comes to the baseball rules. So thank you for getting back to us, though. Okay, so Tigers beat the Cubs last night, 8-6. They got a game coming up this afternoon. I think that Parker Meadows looks like a great outside receiver. His size and his ability to run reminds me of a wide receiver. And he's playing center field now, which tells you what they think of him as a fielder, to bump Riley Green off of center field. And yesterday, Cody Bellinger came up for the Cubs and smoked the ball into right center and kind of deep into right center. And Parker Meadows, before the pitch, was playing to the left field side of second base and a little bit shallow. And I watched this catch 3 separate times to look at the trajectory of the baseball and how far Parker Meadows had to go to catch it. When that ball leaves the bat, when you see the arc of the baseball and where it's headed and know where it's headed because you've seen the highlight, and you look at where Parker Meadows is playing, you think that ball is uncatchable. And he took an incredible route and showed off the great speed and made a diving catch. Covered a ton of ground. And we heard he could run, but when you see it, man, it's impressive. Then he comes up and triples to dead center field. And we really got to see him run the bases there. And he was flying around the bases. And so people love speed. They've always loved speed. And now it comes down to whether or not Parker Meadows can hit. I mean, I'm not saying he's already showed he can run the bases and he can, but you can see that he's got the tools to run the bases and he's got the tools to be a great outfielder. What is yet to be known is, can Parker Meadows hit at the major league level? And I suppose it's yet to be known if he can field and he can run the bases and bring the speed to it, but you can see why he's got those tools. We'll find out about hitting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the word on Parker has always been through the organization. Like, they knew the defense was there, was going to be there. He's playing well in the field. It's just, will the bat catch up so they can bring him up? And, I mean, incredibly small sample size the first couple of games, but he's got a couple hits already. Showed off the speed with the triple. Showed off the speed with the, the catch that you talk about. So, I mean, he's 6'5". These are like long strides, and he can get to from point A to point B faster than you might realize, because of how tall he is. And they think of him incredibly high defensive because Riley Green plays a good center field. And they're like, no, Parker Meadows is playing center field as soon as he gets up here.
It's just like Brian Branch. So,
real quick note on the Tigers-Cubs game, it will not start on time.
Okay.
So keep it here.
All right. We will hear what A.J. Hinch had to say about Parker Meadows and about the recent torque surge. We'll get to that coming up today, starting at 12:32, 97.1 The Ticket.
Pat Caputo says that Lions drafting, here's the headline, the Lions drafting Jameson Williams, glaring mistake. Now, I don't know, I don't remember per se whether Pat was in favor of the trade up and selection of Jameson Williams or not.
Right.
But he is correct. If he doesn't pan out, it will be a colossal mistake because he says the Lions would have had 32 and 34 because of the Stafford trade and could have taken, Christian Watson with either pick. And they could have also taken Jalen Petrie, the safety, or, Kenneth Walker III, any of those guys, instead of taking Jameson Williams, not to mention signed from Georgia, who was taken, or seen, right?
Seen, yeah.
He was taken by Minnesota and he got hurt. But yes, there were other people out there.
Well, I would also take it to say that even if they made the trade, the selection of Jameson Williams is, by his estimation, a failure because you could have had Jordan Davis. You could have had a number of different players.
Yes.
I'm not willing to go there yet. Am I disappointed? Sure. But I'm
Doug Harsh, Gator out today. Tiger baseball. We'll get to a pregame show, but word from Comerica Park is it's going to be delayed to start. So stick with us as we'll keep you company through until 2 o'clock. If the delay lasts that long, rain in the area. Tigers and Cubs coming up this afternoon, final game of the series. Okay, so we were talking about Parker Meadows there, and A.J. Hinch was on the morning show. And look, it's incredibly early, we know, but intriguing 2-game debut for young Mr. Meadows. And here is what A.J. Hinch told the guys in the morning. So he was drafted in 2018. So 19, 20 was the lost year, 21, 22, and here he is in 23, 5 years later. It's just a reminder, because he was 18 years old, Max Clark may come quicker than that and get to the major league level quicker than that, but it can take some time. And in the case of Parker Meadows, it took some time. And you heard him talk about the struggles. As a 19-year-old at West Michigan, he hit .221. He played on two teams, West Michigan and Lakeland, in 2021, hit .210. So .221, moved up one level, and hit .210, splitting between the two levels. Went to Erie, hit .275, was at West Michigan, hit .230. This is in 2022. 2023 in Toledo, this year, he only hit .256. Now, he hit 19 home runs, and he stole 19 bases. The Tigers are going to need some guys that get on base. It doesn't mean you have to hit for average. And his on-base percentage relative to his batting average this year in Toledo was pretty decent. It was about 80 points higher. So if you're going to have not the highest batting average, but have an on-base percentage 80 points higher, provide equal power and stolen bases, that's a useful skill set to have at this level. We'll see if he can hit enough to be everything that he can be here. Also, Spencer Torkelson, his play of late, that was a topic this morning. He went 1-1, and anytime you go 1-1, there's pressure on you. You have to deal with it. Where does the bar get set? What makes you a success? What makes you a failure? Either way, Torque seems to be comfortable now and looks like he's turned a corner. Here's what A.J. Hinch had to say about him. So I hadn't thought about the college season thing, but he's right. I remember that last year he had in college. He actually opened up the season, Arizona State. They played Michigan, and Michigan was coming off the College World Series appearance, and Torque played against that Michigan team, and they beat them. Michigan beat Arizona State, and they got all the way to number one in the country, which is unheard of for a northern school. And then they had a little bit of struggle, and then COVID hit, and that whole season got wiped out, and everybody played about like 8 to 12 games in college baseball that year. He missed out a year of minor league baseball. And I pointed out yesterday, he's had to do in the light what most people have to do in the dark, and that is develop as a baseball prospect. They could have left him in the minors, but there wasn't really a roadblock, and they wanted to see him. And he had to go through the learning process, has had to go through the learning process on the biggest stage instead of in the dark where nobody sees you. When you go through big struggles at Erie, I mean, the hardcores are paying attention, but the fans aren't seeing it, and you don't feel the pressure. But here's the other thing I've learned, and I was talking about this with the Lions because some people were complaining about taking a running back, and some people were complaining about taking Jack Campbell. I went back and looked. When you go in the first round of any draft, there is such a high expectation. Unless you hit the ground running and almost look like a Rookie of the Year candidate from day one, people are going to bitch. The Detroit Lions, who have put together the most promising roster they've had in years, 5 of their last 7 first-round picks, people bitched about. And not just a little, they bitched a lot. I don't think they bitched a lot about Aiden Hutchinson, but they bitched about him. There was some bitching, but I don't even count him. And people didn't bitch about Penei Sewell. But they bitched about a lot because you go in the first round. It just changes the expectation. So, and I'm not counting Hutchinson. I think Hutchinson got a little bit of complaining. Penei Sewell, nobody complained about it. Nobody continues to complain about him. Gibbs, Campbell, Jamison Williams, Jeff Okudah, TJ Hawkinson. Some of them people screamed from mountaintops from moment one. And by the way, in some of them, obviously people were right, but think about that. They're in a healthy place, and yet 5 out of the last 7 first-round picks people complained about. And with Torque, it's no different. Now, Torque, you go in the first round, the bar is so high, the expectation's so high. I'm not going to say it's unfair because it's just part of the job. But you just are coming, you're expected to produce right away. And when you don't, people are quick to call you a bust. Look, this game is not supposed to start on time, but keep it locked in. We'll be here if it doesn't. Tiger Baseball straight ahead here on Carson Anderson on 97.1 The Ticket.
curveball hit hard out in the left field. It's in there for a base hit. Hart may have a shot at box. Here comes the throw. John Worth lets it go, and he runs over Freehan, and they got it.
The crack of the bat.
There's a swing, and there's another drive to left. It's deep, and this one is gone. The second home run by Travel. Whitaker scores.
The roar of the crowd.
Into a mob scene at home. Walk-off winner.
It's unbelievable. It's magic here in this ballpark.
The love of your team.
You Tiger fans are the greatest fans of all. No question about that.
A 123-year tradition continues. This is Detroit Tigers Baseball on the Detroit Tigers Radio Network. Brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Committed to providing members access to care they need whenever and wherever they need it. From the Metro Detroit Buick GMC Dealers broadcast booth, here's the voice of Tigers Baseball, Dan Dickerson.
Hello again, everyone. Getting ready to wrap up this three-game set. Tigers and Chicago Cubs. Tigers with a terrific 8-6 win over the Cubs yesterday. Send Tarik Skubal to the mound. He's coming off an excellent start against the Cleveland Guardians. Jameson Taillon, who has a high ERA, but actually has pitched pretty well in 3 of his last 4 starts, gets the start for the Cubs. Tigers and Cubs, rubber game of the 3-game set. Stay with us. Our conversation manager, A.J. Hinch, coming up next on the Detroit Tigers Radio Network.
Tigers fans, get your game day essentials and save time with Meijer Home Delivery and Pickup. Let our expert shoppers do your shopping so you have more time to root for the home team. Plus, save $5 on your Meijer Home Delivery or